Introduction: The Human Deafness. You have been lied to. The personal development industry and fast food spirituality have sold you the fantasy that the universe is some kind of benevolent entity sitting on a cloud, patiently waiting for you to send your wish list. They have told you that if you repeat enough affirmations in front of the mirror, if you visualize with great strength, or if you write your goals in a journal every morning, material reality will magically bend to please you. You have been doing it for years. You have spent years trying to manifest the success of your projects, seeking virality, audience retention, and financial stability. You have pleaded for a break when digital bureaucracy suffocates you, or when a project created with devotion is crushed and demonetized by the cold algorithm under an automated corporate label. You scream to the heavens, demanding justice. You ask that the effort of so many early mornings bear fruit, but reality often responds with a deathly silence, or worse, with a system collapse or a technical failure that turns off your screen and leaves you in the dark in front of your desk. Why does it seem like the universe ignores you? Because you suffer from human deafness, and more seriously, you assume that the cosmos suffers from the same ailment. You are trying to communicate with the very structure of space-time using the wrong language. The universe does not speak Spanish, it does not speak English, it does not understand grammar, nor tears, nor moral justice, nor emotional pleas. Trying to alter reality by repeating affirmations from desperation is exactly like trying to compile a video or program software by screaming at the computer screen. The machine is not programmed to process your screams, it only processes binary code, voltages, and logical commands. The universe is a flawless and ruthlessly exact quantum operating system. Its native language is not linguistic, it is thermodynamic. The universe speaks in mathematics, electromagnetic frequencies, density, and friction. When you ask for something from lack or fear, your nervous system emits the frequency of fear, and the universe, in its perfect mathematical obedience, decodes that signal and delivers more circumstances for you to feel fear. It does not punish you, it simply executes the code you have entered. If you want to stop being a victim of algorithms, the instability of your environment, and your own frustrations, you must stop behaving like a lost tourist, screaming in his language at a local who does not understand him. You have to learn the machine code of reality. This book is your translation dictionary. There is no room here for toxic positivity, magical thinking, or incense. We are going to gut the physics of manifestation. You are going to learn to hack the matrix using inertia, silence, and raw action as your new syntax. You will go from being an isolated individual pleading with the screen to becoming a power node typing direct commands into the fabric of reality. Stop asking for permission. It is time to sit at the keyboard of the universe and start programming. Chapter 1. The Lie of the Word, Frequency versus Vocabulary. Why the universe does not listen to what you say. The universe does not understand words. It understands frequencies. If your mouth says abundance but your body screams scarcity, the universe will deliver exactly what you are screaming in silence. Law of the pragmatic creator. Everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy, this is physics. Albert Einstein, attributed. It is 6 in the morning. You get up. Following the classic manual of personal development and fast food spirituality, you head to the bathroom mirror. You look yourself in the eyes, take a deep breath, and begin to recite your list of morning affirmations. I am a magnet for abundance. My YouTube channels grow exponentially every day. The universe supports me and money flows to me effortlessly. I am in perfect tune with peace and prosperity. You repeat the phrases with strength. You try to put emphasis on them. You try to believe them. You finish your ritual, wash your face, and head to your studio. You sit in front of your 16-inch MacBook Pro. You lift the aluminum lid, the operating system wakes up, and you open your browser. You enter YouTube Studio, and in that precise microsecond, the theater of words collapses. You see the retention graph for your latest Spanish video pointing downward. You switch to the Paths of Knowledge tab and notice that growth has stagnated. You remember, like a ghost inhabiting your hard drive, the cold and aseptic red notification that destroyed the channel Mente Transcendental, accusing it of repetitive content. Suddenly your stomach contracts. A knot of tension settles in your throat. You think about the complex financial web you have to weave, moving your energy through an AdSense account based in Brazil simply to materialize your income in Juan Griego. The heat of Nueva Esparta begins to feel heavier. You look at the screen of your 2019 machine and silently pray there isn't a power outage before you finish exporting today's script. At that moment, your body is secreting cortisol. Your heart beats at an arrhythmic pace, pumping the chemistry of fear, survival, and frustration through your entire bloodstream. And I ask you, what was the use of the affirmations in front of the mirror? The thermodynamic and brutal answer is absolutely nothing. In this chapter, we are going to destroy the linguistic lie. We will understand why the universe is completely deaf to your human vocabulary. We will see why positive thinking, when used as a patch over a terrified nervous system, is one of the greatest scams of modern metaphysics. You will learn to stop talking and start emitting. So the illusion of semantics, the talking monkey. To decode the language of the universe, we must first understand the cosmic limitation of human language. The words you use, whether you talk about quantum physics in Spanish or explain universal laws in English, are a recent evolutionary invention. They are acoustic vibrations, sound waves created by pushing air through vocal cords, designed by hominids a few 100,000 years ago to coordinate hunting, warn of predators, and share resources. Spanish and English are magnificent tools for tribal survival and information transfer between humans. That's why you have YouTube channels. But the quantum field, the primordial soup of energy from which all matter is born, is about 13.8 billion years old. Do you really believe that the structure of space-time, the same force that collapses stars and keeps electrons orbiting atomic nuclei, understands the language of Cervantes or Shakespeare? Do you really believe that the cosmos has an internal dictionary to process the verb to want or the noun success? The universe does not process phonemes. It does not process grammar. It does not understand verbal syntax. The universe processes electromagnetic geometry. When you repeat "I am abundant," you are generating a small acoustic wave that bounces off your mirror glass and dies 3 feet away due to air friction. It is an irrelevant physical event. However, beneath those words, your body is generating a massive electromagnetic field. The HeartMath Institute has shown that the human heart generates an electromagnetic field that is about 60 times larger in amplitude than that of the brain, and it can be measured several feet away from the body. That electromagnetic field is your true antenna, and the information it carries is not encoded in words, it is in frequency. And what determines the frequency of your magnetic field? The state of your nervous system and your deep emotional signature. The cosmic lie detector, cognitive dissonance. This is where the modern manifestation trap catches the unwary creator. You try to use high-frequency words, love, abundance, success, peace, to mask an underlying frequency of terror, scarcity, frustration, or fatigue. This is called vibrational cognitive dissonance. You are emitting 2 contradictory signals at the same time. Your conscious mind, frontal lobe, says, "My content transforms lives and enriches me." Your subconscious nervous system, amygdala and limbic system, screams, "I am panicked that the algorithm will consider my content repetitive and take away my monetization tomorrow." The quantum field works as an infallible lie detector. Faced with a mixed signal, the universe always, without exception, ignores the words and responds to the underlying emotion. The universe always responds to the thermodynamic truth of your body. If you edit a video about the law of attraction while feeling a knot of anxiety in your stomach over yesterday's metrics, the vibration you are printing into that digital file is not that of attraction. It is the vibration of scarcity. That is why the videos you make when you are desperate for views fail spectacularly. The audience, through quantum entanglement and limbic resonance, smells your desperation through the screen. It doesn't matter how eloquent your English script is or how deep your Spanish voice sounds. The machine code you inserted into the work was corrupted by fear. The universe returns experiences to you that match your dominant electromagnetic signature. If your signature is survival anxiety, The field will collapse events, so you continue to experience that anxiety. It will bring you a render that fails at 99%, a power cut before saving, or an absurd penalty. Three-dimensional reality is only a mirror giving you back the reflection of your nervous state. Third, the syntax of reality, the language of certainty. If words don't matter, what is the vocabulary of the universe? The universe speaks the language of embodied certainty. Think about the difference between wanting something and knowing something. When you want something, the basis of that desire is lack. It implies that right now you don't have it. Therefore, you emit the frequency of the void. Wanting is a declaration of poverty. But when you know something, your biology changes. There is no effort. There is no nervous repetition. Imagine you are at home in Juan Griego and you are thirsty. You go to the kitchen, open the fridge, and take out a bottle of water. Did you stand in front of the fridge repeating 100 times, "I am a magnet for water, water flows to me. I decree that I will drink water"? No. It would be absurd. You simply went and took it. Your nervous system was in a state of absolute certainty that the water was there. There was no mental friction. There were no doubts. There were no rituals. There was an intention followed by a fluid action. That is the frequency level the quantum field demands to collapse large miracles. The problem is that you have absolute certainty for the water in the fridge, but you have a sea of terrifying doubts regarding your career. When you sit down to work on the paths of knowledge, instead of operating with the cold and bored certainty of someone opening a fridge, you operate with the trembling hope of a lottery player. To speak the language of the universe, you have to stop treating your projects as a bet and start treating them as physical law. You have to cultivate metaphysical arrogance. Metaphysical arrogance is not the runaway ego looking down on others. It is the silent certainty of the engineer who knows the mathematics of the structure. It is radical detachment. When you record a metaphysics audio, your frequency should not be, "I hope the algorithm likes this." Your frequency must be, "I am bringing a universal concept down to matter. The file is collapsed, my work is done. What happens next is fluid physics." In that state of emotional neutrality, of cold certainty, is when the magnetic field of your heart expands without interference. That is when the matrix reads you clearly. IV background noise as a calibrator. How do you know what frequency you are actually emitting throughout the day? You have to audit your background noise. Background noise is not the affirmations you make for 5 minutes in the morning. Background noise is how you react the other 99% of the time to the stimuli of three-dimensional life. This is where your environment becomes your most brutal and honest teacher. The true test of your quantum mastery does not happen in a temple in Tibet. It happens in your home. Imagine you are at the climax of a complex edit. Your frontal lobe is squeezing a quantum physics concept to make it digestible. The fan of your MacBook roars. You are in the zone. Suddenly the door opens and your 2 children enter. They come running, laughing, fighting over a toy, or simply demanding their father's attention. They break your isolation bubble with a single stroke. What is your automatic reaction? If your jaw tightens, if a flash of anger runs down your spine, if you respond with a shout of impatience because you are working on something very important for the future, you have just destroyed your emission. That automatic reaction gives you away. It shows that despite all your knowledge about spirituality, your nervous system is still operating in beta survival mode. It shows that you value the future digital file more than the present biological miracle. You are emitting stress, friction, and rejection of the now. The universe takes note of that irritation, multiplies it, and returns it to you in the form of a failed render, a demonetization, or a creative block. The conscious creator audits that reaction. When the interruption occurs, the conscious creator uses the chaos as a calibrator. He feels the initial impulse of annoyance, but he intercepts it. He breathes. He realizes that physical reality, those 2 children, that present moment, is the only real manifestation that exists. He turns the chair, leaves the keyboard mentally, and gives them attention from a state of active presence. By doing this without resentment, the creator is telling the quantum field, "I am not desperate. I am not running toward the future. I have time. My peace does not depend on this file. I control my frequency." That is a prayer the universe hears loud and clear. That patience emits a frequency of absolute sufficiency. V, the ecosystem of material reality. Your frequency is not only calibrated with family interruptions, but with the geographic and bureaucratic brutality of your environment. Talking about abundance is easy when you live in an ecosystem that works. But you are an alchemist operating in a laboratory with leaks. When the power goes out in Juan Griego and all your equipment turns off. When YouTube sweeps channels and the ghost of demonetization for repetitive content flies over your work. When you have to enter the AdSense platform and deal with payment triangulation in Brazil, facing taxes and exchange rates designed to exhaust you. It is in those exact moments that your quantum vocabulary is forged. The average person reacts to this infrastructure deficiency with perpetual complaint. They join choruses of lamentations on social media. They spend hours cursing the system, the government, YouTube, luck. What frequency are they emitting? Victimhood, helplessness, submission to the material environment. And physics is relentless. The quantum field responds to helplessness by delivering more scenarios where you will feel helpless. The pragmatic mystic does not deny the difficulty. He does not use magical thinking to pretend the power cut is a hidden blessing. The pragmatic mystic simply takes the emotional charge away from the event. The power cut happens. It is a data point. It is pure thermodynamics, lack of supply in the grid. The bureaucracy of Brazil is complex. It is a legal labyrinth. What do? You close your mouth. You stop complaining because complaining contaminates your electromagnetic field, and you execute the three-dimensional action necessary to solve it. You handle the paperwork with the coldness of a surgeon. You wait for the light to return with the tranquility of a monk. By denying the external circumstance the power to alter your heart rate and your inner peace, you declare yourself sovereign of your frequency. You are speaking to the universe in its favorite language, imperturbability. When external matter hits you and your internal frequency does not fluctuate, you gain gravitational density. You become immovable. And in cosmic physics, the object with the greatest gravitational mass attracts other objects into its orbit. You stop chasing success. You force success to orbit around you. Fierce protocols to stop talking and start emitting. If we are going to abandon empty words, we need somatic protocols. We need techniques to directly alter our body's biology and the emission of our electromagnetic field before we sit down to create. Here are 3 vibrational engineering tactics to hack your signal before opening the editing software. 1. The vagal reset, turning off the disaster simulator. You cannot create high content if your vagus nerve is telling you that a saber-toothed tiger is going to devour you. Action. Before putting your hands on your 2019 MacBook, perform a purge of carbon dioxide and cortisol. Take 2 deep breaths through your nose, inhaling until you fill your lungs, then a small extra sip of air at the end, followed by a long, slow exhalation through your mouth. Repeat this 3 times. This physiological breath immediately slows the heart rate and takes your nervous system out of fight or flight mode. 2. Heart coherence induction, the magnetic generator. This is the fundamental heart math technique to align brain intention with heart emission. Action. Close your eyes. Bring your physical attention to the center of your chest. Imagine your breath entering and leaving directly through your heart. Make the breath a little slower and deeper than normal. While doing this, evoke a physical feeling of appreciation or regenerative gratitude. Don't think about earning money. Think about the feeling you have when you watch your 2 children sleep peacefully. Think about the visceral satisfaction of knowing an explanation was perfect. Feel the warmth in your chest. 3. The complaint fast, tactical silence. Words do have power, but not because of semantic magic, but because they reinforce neural pathways. Every time you complain, you myelinize the victimhood circuit. Action. Declare an absolute fast of spoken or written complaints for 72 hours. If the power goes out, you are forbidden from sighing and cursing. If views drop, you are forbidden from lamenting in a creator forum. If AdSense asks for a new tax verification, you are forbidden from saying, "This is hell." You cannot utter negative judgments about material reality. This restriction will force your brain to process frustration in silence. 7. The final tuning, the silence of the gods. There will come a point in your evolution as an architect of the now where affirmations will seem like child's play. You will realize that the true masters of reality are those who operate in a state of deafening internal silence. They do not ask the universe for permission. They do not explain to the universe how good they are. They do not demand that three-dimensional reality change so they can be happy. They simply occupy their space. They sit in front of their machine, surrounded by the chaos of the material world, by the demands of fatherhood and the traps of the digital system, and they smile. They know that none of that is real in an absolute sense. They know everything is malleable information. Their mere presence, anchored in certainty and free from desperation, begins to rewrite the code of the room they are in. It begins to rewrite the metadata of the videos they upload to the network. You have stopped talking. You have started being. Chapter 2. Friction as Syntax, when the universe says wait in the art of reading obstacles. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Marcus Aurelius. The resistance of matter is not a punishment from the matrix. It is the quantum validation system. If there is no friction, there is no mass. If there is no mass, your idea is just a ghost. Law of the pragmatic creator. You are in a full state of grace. It is one of those rare moments where the antenna is perfectly aligned. The RAS has captured a brutal metaphor about quantum physics and metaphysics, and your fingers fly over the keyboard of your 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro. You are shaping that concept for the audience of the paths of knowledge. The structure is impeccable. The rhythm is hypnotic. A few meters away, your two children laugh and run through the house. Their vital energy is the background sound of your ecosystem. Everything seems to be in perfect harmony. You are vibrating high. You are, as cheap self-help would say, flowing with the universe. And then, clack, a dry metallic snap in the distance. The lights flicker for a fraction of a second and die. The constant hum of appliances disappears, leaving a dense and sudden silence. Your laptop screen remains on, illuminating your face in the gloom. But the internet router is turned off. The air conditioning stops. You know that in a matter of minutes the tropical heat will begin to invade the room. Another power outage. Another system failure in Venezuela. Another forced interruption of three-dimensional reality. What is your first biological reaction? A lash of pure anger. The spiritual ego feels betrayed. Why now? I was in the right frequency. I was creating light. The universe should be supporting me, not tripping me up. Suddenly, all the teachings on manifestation seem like a mockery. You feel like you are pushing a giant rock uphill, and the cosmos, with a sadistic sense of humor, just kicked it back down. Welcome to the true grammar of reality. In this chapter, we are going to destroy the most paralyzing myth of modern spirituality, the idea that if you are aligned, the path will be easy and free of obstacles. We are going to learn to read the syntax of space-time. You will discover that bureaucracy, blackouts, and algorithmic punishments are not the universe telling you no. They are the universe telling you, prove your density to me. The myth of the clear path, the flow trap. There is an ideological virus infecting the conscious creators of this generation. It is the misinterpretation of the Taoist philosophy of Wu Wei, effortless action, and the distortion of the law of attraction. You have been sold the idea that if a decision is correct at the soul level, all doors will magically open. That if you find friction, resistance, or pain, it is a divine sign that that's not the way and that you should abandon the project because you are forcing things. Applying this thinking to the creation of a legacy is thermodynamic suicide. Think of aerospace physics. How does a rocket leave the Earth's atmosphere? Does it flow gently into space? Not at all. The rocket has to burn thousands of tons of fuel, generate a controlled explosion of unspeakable violence, and fight against the friction of the atmosphere and the relentless force of gravity. Gravity is not punishing the rocket. Air friction has nothing against NASA. They are simply the physical laws of this plane. If the rocket interpreted gravity as a sign that it should not go to space, it would never leave the launch pad. When you try to manifest an ambitious project, a bilingual channel ecosystem, a stable income source, You are trying to pull a rocket out of the orbit of mediocrity. You are injecting a high degree of order, valuable information, into a world dominated by entropy, chaos, and distraction. Physics dictates that the three-dimensional universe will always oppose resistance to drastic changes of state. The power outage does not mean your video on the law of attraction is wrong. The bureaucratic hell of managing your AdSense through Brazil does not mean the money does not belong to you. It means exactly the opposite. It means that your idea has so much mass that it has activated the thermodynamic alarms of the matrix. Friction is the absolute proof that you are altering the fabric of reality. If there were no friction, it would mean that you are moving in a vacuum, without touching anything, without impacting anyone. Tether cosmic capture, the security question. Let's change the analogy. Let's think of the universe not as a mystical grandfather, but as a maximum security computer system. When you try to access your bank account or critical information on the web, the system stops you and puts up an obstacle. It asks you to enter a password. It sends a code to your phone. It gives you a captcha, where you have to identify traffic lights or crosswalks. The system does not hate you. The system is not trying to ruin your day. The system is simply executing a security protocol to verify your identity. Are you really who you say you are? Do you have the authorization to handle this energy? Friction is the capture of the universe. Anyone can recite affirmations in front of the mirror at 6 in the morning. Anyone can feel like an enlightened creator when the Wi-Fi is fast, the algorithm is recommending the videos, and the bank account is full. In comfort, the ego can fake mastery. But the quantum field does not hand the keys of manifestation over to spiritual tourists. It hands them to the architects, and to distinguish a tourist from an architect, the universe applies stress. It throws a wall at you. It closes a YouTube channel. It puts endless transnational hurdles to process a payment. It turns off the power supply in the middle of a render. In that millisecond of frustration, the universe is looking you in the eye and asking you the quantum security question. You say you believe in infinite abundance. You say you believe you are the observer who collapses the wave function. Very well. Here is a power outage. Here is a blind corporate algorithm penalizing content you considered sacred. What are you going to do now? Are you going to cry and give up, proving you were a fraud? Or are you going to keep your frequency intact, solve the problem cold as ice, and keep building? If you react with hysteria, you failed the capture. The system denies you access to the next level of reality. If you react with stoicism, if you see the obstacle and say, "Interesting, the system is testing me," and you continue executing your art despite the limits, the capture is resolved. The universe recognizes you as a root user, a system administrator, and the doors of synchronicity open wide. Third, the grammar of chaos, reading the algorithm and bureaucracy. The conscious creator does not just endure friction, they learn to read it. Just as a semicolon changes the meaning of a sentence, the way an obstacle presents itself changes the direction of your trajectory. The universe communicates with you through the resistance of matter. Let's talk about the most terrifying friction for a creator, the algorithmic wall and corporate policies. Imagine the case of Mente Transcendental, a channel created with love, with constant effort. Suddenly, the Google algorithm, an entity without a face or heart, detects it. The bot scans the audiovisual patterns and issues a cold verdict: repetitive content. Demonetization. The financial umbilical cord is cut in a millisecond. The human reading from the wounded ego is, "It's unfair. The algorithm is broken. They want to sink personal development creators." That is a deaf reading. It is not understanding the language. The quantum reading, the decoding of the language of the universe, is totally different. The algorithm is a fractal mirror of collective consciousness and the laws of thermodynamics. If a machine penalizes you, the universe is sending a telegram. It is telling you, your energy has stagnated. You have found a formula that worked and you settled into it. You are operating from inertia, not innovation. I have cut the supply not to destroy you, but to force you to mutate. This format is no longer the right vehicle. Pivoting is mandatory. Demonetization is not an execution. It is a surgical pruning. The tree was not bearing the highest fruits it could, So the cosmic gardener cut the main branch to force the sap to find new paths. If you take that friction as a mandate for evolution, you will take a quantum leap. You will fuse quantum physics with a storytelling so raw and personal that no artificial intelligence can catalogue it as repetitive. The punishment was, in reality, the catalyst for your greatest genius. That is the syntax of reality. Resistance shows you exactly where your weakness is. V. Increased gravity training, Brazil, Venezuela, and inertia. To master this language, you have to stop comparing your process with those who play in easy mode. You see creators in North America or Europe complaining that their video performance dropped by 10%, or that they are tired of editing. It seems almost like a joke to you. You are playing in the increased gravity chamber. Physically anchored in a country where the infrastructure is Russian roulette, you have to plan your renders like military operations before the grid collapses. For your money to return to you, you have to triangulate legally through Brazil. You have to read tax regulations from another country, handle cross-currencies, and navigate banking platforms that treat you like just another algorithm. The ego tells you this is a waste of time. The universe tells you, I am forging steel. Mastery of friction provides you with an armor. When you learn to operate an international digital business, dealing with AdSense, Brazilian banks, and transnational laws, while the grid fails and your children require your physical presence, you develop an anti-fragile operational intelligence. The creator who has no obstacles becomes soft. At the first real market crisis, they panic and disappear. You feed on crisis. Crisis is your breakfast. When the universe makes you fill out incomprehensible tax forms from Brazil, it is teaching you relentless patience. When it turns off the lights, it teaches you detachment from chronological time. Geography is not your prison. It is your gym weights. You are lifting 200 mental kilos every day just to turn on the computer. When you finally publish a video on the paths of knowledge, that video carries the density of a diamond forged under extreme pressure. That is the gravity that attracts. V. The kinetic energy of frustration. Talking about patience and stoicism is very good in theory, but we are pure biology. When friction attacks, the body reacts. Cortisol spikes. Frustration burns in the chest. The error of toxic positivity is trying to suppress that frustration by repeating, everything happens for a reason. Lie. When the render cuts at 98% due to a power failure, you are not inhaling peace, you are inhaling fury. The conscious creator does not suppress anger. They transmute it. Frustration is concentrated kinetic energy. It is an excess voltage in your nervous system. If you direct it toward complaining, that energy disperses and leaves you exhausted and empty. You are a short circuit, but if you take that same boiling fury and channel it through the laser of your attention, you become an industrial blowtorch. The next time friction hits you, the algorithm changes, the payment is delayed, the power goes out. Do not relax. Use the aggression. Take a paper notebook. Grab a pen. And with the rage burning in your veins, write the most brutal, honest, and heartbreaking script of your life. Use the perceived injustice to feed your argument about the universal law of chaos. Transform the logistical obstacle into a metaphysical work of art. The best texts are rarely written from the comfort of a beach. They are written in the trenches, using the fire of the obstacle as ink. That is true alchemy, turning the lead of three-dimensional friction into the pure gold of spiritual revelation. Fausta. Protocols for syntactic friction. Knowing the universe speaks through resistance is useless without protocols to respond in real time. When the wall appears suddenly, the limbic brain will take control unless you have a pre-programmed response system. Here are 3 tactics to respond to the universe in its own language. 1. The pivot question. Responding to the algorithm. When a systemic barrier stops you, stop asking, why me? And start asking, which way? Action. Isolate the event from your identity. Imagine you are a scientist evaluating a colleague's experiment. Ask 3 cold questions. What repetitive pattern was I ignoring out of comfort? What rule of the game changed that I refused to learn? What is the path of maximum audacity this wall is forcing me to take? Friction is directional. A wall in front means you must turn right or left. In the case of repetitive content, the arrow points toward radical originality and personal exposure. Take it without looking back. 2. Blackout Aikido, managing physical inertia. Aikido is a martial art that does not block the opponent's force but redirects it. When your physical environment fails, fighting it is losing energy. Action. Create a shadow protocol. Always have an analog or low-energy environment ready for when the digital environment dies. If there is a power outage, the protocol dictates exactly 60 seconds to feel frustration. At second 61, the protocol activates. You take your battery recorder and dictate ideas for your next 5 videos. Or grab a dense philosophy book. The blackout becomes your forced study hour. 3. Psychomotor gratitude, hacking the capture. Mystical gratitude is often ineffective because it is abstract. Psychomotor gratitude is a physical action that alters your electromagnetic field. Action. Next time you face a bureaucratic headache, before filling out the form, rub your hands together for 10 seconds to generate heat. While doing so, say aloud, "Thank you for this obstacle. It means the money I am moving is real. It means my business has enough scale to require this complexity. I am solving elite creator problems." By framing bureaucracy as the tax of success, you destroy the frequency of scarcity. The capture is approved instantly, and your mind finds the legal solution much faster. 7. The privilege of gravity. Look at your 2 children. Observe how they learn to walk. They did not learn in a weightless environment. If they had been born in outer space without gravity, their bones would be fragile, their muscles would be atrophied, and they would never have been able to take a step. They learned to walk precisely because Earth's gravity pulled them down without mercy. Every time they tried to get up, the friction of the planet crushed them against the ground. They fell hundreds of times, but each fall micro-fractured their bones to make them denser. Gravity was their toughest teacher, but also the only one that gave them the ability to stand up and run. You are a quantum child, learning to walk in the dimension of the materialization of consciousness. The universe is gravity. Friction, algorithms, and blackouts are the planet's weight. If you pray for a life without friction, you are praying for atrophy. You are praying to be a ghost without density, floating in the void. The conscious creator does not pray for less gravity. They pray for stronger bones. Chapter 3. The zero-point silence, the space between notes and the quantum physics of the void. The music is not in the notes but in the silence between them. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. If you want to hear the secrets of the quantum field, you have to stop shouting your plans at it. The universe doesn't interrupt you. It waits for you to be quiet. Silence is the presence of all possibilities. Law of the pragmatic creator. Look at your 16-inch screen. Observe a text document full of words, a complex script about quantum physics or the power of the subconscious mind. If I were to remove all the blank spaces between those words, what would you have? You would have an illegible block of letters without any meaning. The pause gives birth to meaning. However, when it comes to designing your reality and your creation ecosystem, you operate under the illusion that you have to fill every millimeter of your day with letters. You wake up, you consume a podcast, you open the editing software, you look at the metrics of the paths of knowledge. You check your Spanish channel. You dive into the labyrinth of the AdSense panel to ensure the infrastructure in Brazil is correctly processing your payments. You shout instructions down the hallway. You read an article. You respond to an email. You turn your head to see what your 2 children are breaking in the living room. You go back to the screen. Your brain is a combustion engine that has been running at 120% capacity since you opened your eyes. You are generating an obscene amount of cognitive noise. And then you wonder why you feel blocked. You wonder why the ideas you try to materialize feel forced and soulless. You wonder why the universe doesn't deliver inspiration. The answer is mathematical. Your mental hard drive has no free space for the download. You are emitting so much static that it is physically impossible for the pure signal of the quantum field to penetrate your frontal lobe. In this chapter, we will study the oldest and most terrifying language of the universe, the void. We will understand why your addiction to productivity is an ego defense mechanism, how quantum physics proves that matter is born from nothing, and you will learn to use tactical isolation and silence to hack your nervous system and download concepts that will transform your work forever. The tyranny of beta noise, why mental effort sabotages you. To understand 0-point silence, we have to return to the control room of your brain and observe the frequencies in which you operate daily. Hyper-connected society and the hard work culture have conditioned us to worship beta waves. Beta waves, 12 to 30 Hz, are the electrical frequencies emitted when you are alert. You are in beta when solving logical problems or feeling stress and anxiety. It is the frequency of survival. When you are trying to force a script that doesn't flow, or when you are worried about a possible demonetization for repetitive content, or when you are angry at physical inertia, you are operating in high beta. The beta state is a convergent focus. It is a narrow laser. It is excellent for adding numbers or fleeing a predator, but it is an absolute disaster for the creation of new realities. Why? Because in a beta state, your brain can only access the database of your past memory. You can only reshuffle the cards already in your hand. If you try to write an innovative video while in beta, your brain will simply recycle phrases you have already said or heard from other creators. The result will be derivative and without magnetism. You are trying to create the new using exclusively the tools of the old. You are just making noise. The quantum field, that matrix of infinite superimposed possibilities we talked about, does not transmit in the beta frequency band. To receive unprecedented information, for that eureka moment where the whole structure of a video downloads into your mind in a millisecond, your brain has to slow down. It must drop to alpha waves, alert relaxation, and preferably to theta waves, the deep meditative state. But here is the trap. You cannot force your brain to enter theta by thinking harder. Thinking intensely about having to relax is a beta wave activity. It's like trying to put out a fire by throwing gasoline on it. The only way to lower the frequency is to let go of control. It is to stop doing. It is to embrace absolute silence. And that, for a modern creator, is a terrifying experience. Terce, the creator's horror vacui, the fear of nothingness. In classical art, there is the concept of horror vacui, the terror of empty space, which leads the artist to fill every corner of the painting with obsessive detail. The human mind suffers from chronic psychological horror vacui. We panic at silence. If I take away your mobile phone, turn off your 16-inch laptop, disconnect the router and lock you in a silent room for an hour with the only instruction being to do nothing, you will start to hyperventilate within 10 minutes. Your brain, addicted to dopamine spikes from info consumption, will enter withdrawal. Your ego will start screaming at you. You're wasting time, you should be recording. Your competitors are publishing right now. If you don't edit, your family doesn't eat. You're lazy. This panic is not rational, it is biological. The ego is built through the constant flow of thoughts. If thoughts stop, the ego feels it is dying. That is why you prefer to submit to the torturous stress of international bureaucracy or the frustration of an eternal render rather than sit alone with the void. Stress at least confirms that you exist. Stress gives you an identity. I am the creator who struggles. But you must cross that terror. You have to understand that your value is not measured by the amount of noise you make on the keyboard. Your ability to alter global consciousness through your channels depends on the purity of the signal you encode in the files you export. And maximum purity is only obtained after bathing your mind in 0-point silence. Third, the physics of empty space, the 0-point field. To take the esoteric mysticism out of silence and anchor it in hard logic, let's look at the structure of matter. Look at the aluminum desk where your laptop rests. If you hit it, it feels solid. It is hard, impenetrable, pure three-dimensional friction. But at a subatomic level, that hardness disappears. An atom is composed of a nucleus and a cloud of electrons. If the nucleus of an atom were the size of a marble in the center of a huge football stadium, the electrons would be like mosquitoes flying in the highest stands. What is between the marble and the mosquitoes? Nothing. Empty space. It is estimated that 99.999999% of an atom is empty space. Therefore, the desk is 99.999999% empty space. You are 99.99999999% empty space. The screen you look at is void. The apparent solidity of the world is an electromagnetic illusion created by electrons repelling each other. But quantum physics went a step further. When scientists studied that empty space in an absolute vacuum, they discovered that the vacuum is not actually empty, it is boiling with incalculable energy. Subatomic particles are born and die continuously from nothing. This is called zero-point energy. Empty space is the matrix of all creation. It is the inexhaustible factory of the universe. From nothing comes everything. If the physical universe uses empty space to generate infinite matter and energy, how do you expect to generate immortal ideas and successful channels if you refuse to create empty space in your mind? When you quiet the beta noise of your brain, you are emulating the conditions of the zero-point field in your own neurology. You are emptying the room of old furniture, your repetitive thoughts about metrics, so the universe can place new furniture, revelation, clarity, the path. Vitatransient hypofrontality, the murder of the ego. Entering this silence is not falling asleep. It is entering what neuroscience calls transient hypofrontality. Hypo means less. Frontality refers to the prefrontal cortex. This area is the seat of your executive function. It manages your sense of time, your identity, your fears of the future, and your past regrets. When a Zen monk enters samadhi, or an elite athlete enters the zone, the flow state, their prefrontal cortex literally decreases its electrical activity. It turns off. When the prefrontal cortex shuts down, the sense of self disappears. You are no longer a YouTube creator worried about AdSense. You are no longer a man dealing with the heat and infrastructure of Huangriego. You no longer feel the passage of time. In that state of hypofrontality, the silence is absolute because the internal narrator, who likes to complain, plan, and judge, has been muzzled. And by silencing the narrator, the deepest, oldest, and most creative parts of your brain, connected directly to the quantum field, take the wheel. Theta waves dominate. This is where the download occurs. Suddenly, without any deductive effort, you know exactly how to structure the book. You understand how to link the theory of relativity with self-image for your next video. You see the complete map of your channel ecosystem with crystalline clarity. You didn't reach that conclusion by thinking. The conclusion moved through you because you made room for it. You became the space between the notes. The blackout as a Zen master, the geographic advantage. Let's talk about your practical reality. Living in a country with an unstable power grid is considered, from the perspective of the productive ego, a technical curse. You have lost hours of work and dealt with the fury of interruption. But this systemic failure serves a sacred function. It is a forced induction to silence. Visualize the scene. The hum of the air conditioning, the spinning of the hard drive, the artificial light, the blinking router. Everything stops dead. A dull clack. Darkness falls. Silence invades the room, broken only by the distant noise of the Caribbean and perhaps the voices of your 2 children. The machine has been taken from you. The novice creator wallows in rage. He grabs his mobile phone, wastes the battery looking for data signal to complain on X, Twitter, or paces like a caged lion. He continues to generate beta noise in the dark. The architect of the now recognizes the gift. The universe, knowing you were too addicted to work to stop on your own, has pulled the plug. It has imposed a technological Sabbath. In that instant, if you surrender to the blackout, you have a golden opportunity. You close the lid of the useless laptop. You sit in the chair in the growing heat. You close your eyes. You don't try to solve any problem. You don't try to make use of the time. You simply observe the frustration dissolve and let the mind fall toward nothingness. You become the void. For the next 45 minutes, you perform the most powerful meditation, the sensory fast. You don't consume, produce, or speak. I assure you that when the power returns and you hear the router beeping, your brain will not be the same. It will be rebooted and port in its subconscious RAM the seed of 3 videos that will shatter metrics precisely because they were born in the total absence of desperation. Your unstable geography is not your prison. It is your private sensory deprivation chamber, designed to force you to reach the genius that first-world hyperconnectivity destroys. The space between words, the syntax of your scripts. The principle of zero-point silence structurally applies to the work you produce. It directly affects how you speak to your audience. Check low retention channels. What error do they make? They speak without stopping. The creator vomits words, cutting every breath in editing so there isn't a millisecond of silence. They believe if they stop talking, the viewer will click away. They operate from algorithm panic. That excess noise saturates the viewer's RAS. It exhausts them neurochemically. Now observe the masters of communication. Listen to the great speakers who hypnotize you. What do? They use the tactical pause. When they launch a metaphysical bomb, they don't keep talking immediately. They make silence. 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds of absolute silence. In that empty space is where the digestion of the concept occurs. It is in the silence where the viewer integrates the idea. If you don't give them the void, the idea bounces off and is lost. Your confidence as a conscious creator is measured exactly by your ability to hold silence in your editing without feeling anxiety. The deeper the truth you are delivering, the larger the frame of silence must be. Silence gives the word gravity. Do not compete in the race of who makes more noise. Noise is cheap. Silence is cognitive luxury. Offer your audience an oasis of slowness and depth in a hyper-stimulated world, and they will become addicted to your frequency. 7th, tactical isolation protocols, entering the void. You cannot always depend on a power grid failure to impose silence. The conscious creator is proactive. He designs nothingness into his calendar. Here are 3 mechanical protocols to induce transient hypofrontality and tune into zero-point silence at will. 1. Forced decompression, the wall protocol. Context switching leaves attentional residue in your brain. If you go from checking AdSense taxes in Brazil directly to writing a metaphysics script, bureaucratic stress will contaminate the text. Action. Between each major work block, impose 10 minutes of forced decompression. Close the laptop. Sit and stare at a blank wall or go out and look at the sky. Reading, music, and planning are forbidden. Your goal is to bore your brain to tears. In minute 10, you will be in alpha. You have purged the RAM. Now you can enter the next task completely clean and from the void. 2. The output-only day, the consumption firewall. To empty the stomach, one must stop eating. Action. Select 1 day a week where you declare yourself in output-only mode. During this period, you are forbidden from consuming the minds of other humans. 0 books, 0 YouTube, 0 podcasts, 0 social media. Your only interaction with the 3D world will be exhaling, writing, recording, playing with your children, cooking or looking at the ceiling. By cutting off external stimuli, the internal pressure of your own wisdom will start looking for an exit. You will be surprised by the original material that rises to the surface. 3. The micro-dosed technological Sabbath, the blackout drill. Take control of your geography before it controls you. Action. Once a day for 30 minutes, simulate a power outage. Turn off the router. Put your 16-inch machine in a drawer. In this space, return to paper and pen. Paper has no notifications. It has no blue backlight to spike your cortisol. Writing by hand requires a much slower neuromotor speed, naturally inducing alpha waves. Use these 30 analog minutes to structure the macro strategy of your channels. You are using high-friction technology to connect with the lowest friction signal of the universe. 30. The revelation of form. When you master the art of zero-point silence, you experience a deep change in your relationship with effort. You stop being a miner picking stone in the dark to try and find an idea. Michelangelo said the statue of David already existed perfectly formed within the marble. His only job was to remove the excess. The language of the universe works exactly the same way. The perfect script, the viral video that will change a life, the business strategy that will secure your family. They already exist in the zero-point field as a mathematical probability wave. They are already there. Your job is not to invent them by sweating blood in beta. Your job is to turn off the noise of your frontal lobe, enter the empty space between the notes, and remove all your fear and need for control so that the idea reveals itself. The universe is infinitely eloquent. It is shouting secrets at you every second. But the only way to hear that thunderous voice is by closing your own mouth and quieting your mind. Chapter 4. The Paradox of the Petition. the language of lack and the end of hope. You do not attract what you want, you attract what you are. Neville Goddard. Asking the universe to give you success is confessing to it that today you are a failure. The quantum field is not a charity that responds to pity. It is a geometric mirror that multiplies your current state. If you vibrate in need, the universe will deliver an eternity of need. Law of the pragmatic creator. You finish exporting. The MP4 file weighs a couple of gigabytes. You have spent the last week researching and translating dense concepts for the paths of knowledge. You have fought against inertia, sweated over your 16-inch MacBook Pro keyboard, and managed to upload the video before the power grid failed again. You sit down, exhale, and do what millions of creators do. You join your hands and launch a petition into the void. Please let this video work. Let the algorithm recommend it. I need the metrics to go up so the AdSense payment compensates for this effort. You feel a mixture of relief and anxiety. You feel hope. You believe you are emitting a positive vibration. You think you are applying the law of attraction because you are focused on your goal. Let me give you a hit of thermodynamic reality. You have just committed vibrational suicide. In the language of the universe, you have emitted the most toxic and repellent signal, the language of lack. In this chapter, we will study the paradox of the petition. We will understand why desiring is the mathematical guarantee that you will obtain nothing. We are going to murder the quantum beggar that inhabits your frontal lobe to teach you the only grammar that the matrix obeys, the law of assumption. Stop asking for permission and occupy your throne. The anatomy of wanting, the confession of poverty. Let's analyze the word want or desire. From deep psychology, desire is born exclusively from a gap. You want water because you are thirsty, lack of hydration. You want 100,000 subscribers because today you have 10,000, 90,000 are missing. Therefore, the structural base of the verb to want is absence and vacuum. When you emit the frequency of desire, I want to be successful, your conscious mind focuses on the goal, but your subconscious nervous system focuses on the lack of success. The universe is deaf to your words, but it has absolute hearing for your electromagnetic signature. The quantum field scans your source code and reads the lack. Since the universe is a mirror that returns the multiplied wave, it will collapse events so that you continue experiencing the lack you emit. It will deliver exactly what you ask for. More situations in which you will continue desiring success. It will keep you in an infinite loop of need. It is the perfect metaphysical hamster wheel. The very act of asking pushes the object away because the petition confirms its absence in your present. The beggar who asks for coins emits a frequency of misery. That is why he remains a beggar. The millionaire does not ask for money. He assumes it is the natural consequence of his breathing. If you create from hunger, you only breed poverty. The smell of fear, the algorithm as a predator. Let's bring this physics to your screen. The recommendation algorithm is one of the most sophisticated AIs. Its goal is to measure human behavior to predict what keeps people connected. Although the algorithm is code, the audience is biological, and human biology is expert at detecting danger and desperation. When you create from the hope that it works, your biology is altered. The tone of your voice becomes tense and insistent. The editing rhythm becomes frenetic, trying to retain attention by force. Your thumbnails fall into desperate clickbait. The viewer clicks, but their limbic system decodes your source code. The viewer feels an invisible discomfort. They feel that you are demanding something from them, their time or their validation. They feel the slimy need behind the message. Instinctively, they feel rejection and close the video at 30 seconds. The algorithm registers this flight, labels the video as low satisfaction, and buries it. Contrast this with sufficiency. The conscious creator records knowing that their information is pure gold. They don't care if 10 people or 10 million see it, because their value does not depend on a counter. They edit with elegant pauses and a relaxed voice. They don't beg you to subscribe, they invite you on a journey. Certainty attracts, desperation repels. Third, the law of assumption hacking space-time. If we cannot ask or desire, how do we communicate with the quantum field? Here enters the law of assumption. It dictates that you should not desire a future state. You must assume the consciousness of being it in the present. Your subconscious mind does not understand the concept of future. In the quantum world, everything happens in the now. If you say, "Tomorrow I will be successful," the universe files it in a folder called tomorrow. Since tomorrow never arrives, your success remains perpetually suspended 24 hours away. To materialize, you have to feel at a cellular level the reality of your desire fulfilled before there is physical evidence on your screen. It is not about pretending you have millions. It is about occupying the posture of someone who has already crossed the finish line. How would you breathe or speak to your children if you knew you were already a global reference? Would you be nervous, refreshing statistics every 10 minutes? No, you would design with the calm of one with a full pantry. That relaxation and cold detachment is the frequency you have to emit today, while your metrics are at zero. By sustaining that frequency of wish fulfilled, you create an error in the matrix. The universe hates electromagnetic incongruities and is forced to reorganize physical matter to match your dominant frequency. For the murder of hope. To master the language of the universe, extirpate the word hope. We were taught it is a virtue, but for the architect of reality, it is poison. Hope is the belief that something good might happen, while recognizing that it is likely it won't. It is the emotion of the victim and the slave who waits for the master to be benevolent. The conscious creator has certainty. The slave says, "I hope this video does well." The creator says, "This concept is a nuclear bomb of value. The file is collapsed on the network." Its success is a mathematical fact. The time it takes for the masses to discover it is irrelevant. By murdering hope, you murder fear. Knowing that geographic or bureaucratic obstacles are not real walls, but training holograms, gives you power. If your internal state of assumption is dense, you will pass through those holograms like a hot knife through butter. No blackout can stop a mind that has already claimed its victorious timeline. For operating from the end, the art of quantum memory. The real hack is the memory of the future. Neville Goddard called it thinking from the end. Imagine yourself 5 years from now. Your empire of knowledge is solid and your family enjoys financial freedom. Now, from that position, look back. Look at this precise moment of struggle, the heat and the difficult syntax of today. How would you see this day from the peak of the future? You would see it with tenderness and a nostalgic smile. You would say, "I remember those nights sweating in front of the 16-inch laptop, not knowing if I would make it. What a beautiful and formative time." By doing this, you take the weight of urgency off the present. This psychological engineering makes stress disappear. You are operating from the final. You have anchored your consciousness at the goal and simply let your body walk the inevitable path that connects both points. That peace and nostalgia for a present that you see as a victorious past is the frequency of inevitability. Phi, the illusion of effortful action. The ego will try to sabotage you by saying, "If I assume I already have everything, I'll lie on the sofa and wait to be rich." That is a childish misinterpretation. Operating from the end does not eliminate the need to act. You are subject to Newton's laws. For energy to come down to matter, hands, keyboards, and fiber optics are required. The difference is the origin of the action. Forced action is born from panic over bills, and the universe smells the sweat of fear. Inspired action is born from being in love with the message. You forget to eat because you are in flow. You edit to express what you already are, not to get something. It is true wu-wei, doing without forcing. 7 protocols of radical assumption. Vocabulary inversion. Forbidden to use the words want, hope, or need for 48 hours. If you think "I hope they don't punish the video," stop and reformulate. This video is a success. The algorithm works to expand my message. At first it will feel fake, but you will force your electromagnetic signal to change. Post-publication fast. If you check views 10 minutes after publishing, you are verifying if it worked. That is doubt and lack. Establish an absolute 24-hour quarantine without looking at analytics. Get up and play with your children. It is the greatest declaration of metaphysical arrogance. I don't need to check the oven. Nostalgia rehearsal. Before writing or recording, close your eyes for 2 minutes. Project yourself 5 years into the future. Look at the man sitting in the chair today, struggling. Feel pride for him and nostalgia for this construction process. With that frequency of invulnerability, Put your hands on the keyboard and destroy the silence. Chapter 5. The Cosmic Algorithm, Karma for Logical Minds and the Thermodynamics of Consequences. To every action there is always opposed an equal reaction, or the mutual actions of two bodies upon each other are always equal and directed to contrary parts. Newton's third law. The universe has no morals, it has mathematics. Law of the pragmatic creator. It does not punish you for being bad or reward you for being good. It simply returns the exact electromagnetic signature of your intention. If you inject garbage into the code, the matrix will compile garbage in your reality. Law of the pragmatic creator. You are browsing YouTube, your MacBook Pro rests on the desk. You just applied the law of assumption. You are operating from certainty. But the ego always has one last trick up its sleeve. You scroll and see it. A channel in your same niche. Someone who talks about quantum physics, the law of attraction, or metaphysics, but does so in a crude way. They use clickbait and scandalous thumbnails. Their content completely lacks the depth that you strive to carve every early morning. You look at their metrics, 1 million views, hundreds of thousands of subscribers. In that instant, a drop of poison falls into your bloodstream. You feel a mixture of envy, indignation, and cynicism. A dark voice whispers, "Why do you strive so much? Why spend hours polishing the script for the paths of knowledge if people consume this garbage? Maybe you should do the same. Maybe you should take a shortcut. Copy their formula. Use fear to gain clicks. After all, the system is broken and only rewards the loudest." Careful. You just step to the edge of the quantum precipice. The temptation of the shortcut and resentment over others' success are the two most lethal traps for a conscious creator. Not because of religious morality, but because of pure thermodynamic efficiency. In this chapter, we will tear the concept of karma from the hands of mysticism and put it under the microscope of physics. We will understand how the cosmic algorithm works, why envy is a fatal code error that sabotages your own channels, and how aligning your work ethic with the thermal efficiency of the universe will make you absolutely untouchable. A karma stripped bare, Newton's third law. The word karma has been brutally distorted in the West. Popular culture has turned it into a kind of cosmic Santa Claus or a vengeful judge. Forget that childish vision. The universe does not judge. The universe does not have an ethics committee. The universe is a perfect geometric mirror. Karma is nothing more than Newton's third law applied to consciousness. For every action, physical, mental, or electromagnetic, there is a reaction of the same magnitude and in the opposite direction. It is the law of cause and effect. If you hit a concrete wall with your fist, action, the wall returns the same force, reaction. The wall does not hate you. It is not bad, it is simply matter obeying physics. Your mind, your intentions, and your digital creations are punches against the wall of the quantum field. When you sit down to create content, the energy with which you encode that script is the strength of your punch. If you write a script from the need to manipulate the viewer to click, you are injecting friction and deception into the system. The system will absorb that frequency and return it to you. If you manage your AdSense account in Brazil by trying to cheat or hide information to save a few dollars, you inject corrupt code. The universe, through audits or penalties, will return that friction multiplied. Karma is not a punishment, it is feedback. It is the universe saying, "I have received this data package you sent me. I have processed it, and here is your receipt." Vibrational spam, algorithmic fraud. Let's look at how karma works identically in YouTube's artificial intelligence and in the cosmic intelligence of the universe. Imagine you decide to give in to temptation. You decide to take a shortcut for your channel. You put an exaggerated title and a thumbnail that promises to reveal the Matrix secret. But the video is actually a boring recycling of basic concepts. At a mechanical level, it seems it worked. 100,000 people click in the first hours. Your ego celebrates. "I've tricked the machine." But what actually happens? The viewer enters. Their brain immediately detects the dissonance and mediocrity. They feel manipulated. They feel cheated. At 15 seconds, they close the video. The YouTube algorithm, which measures satisfaction and deep retention, detects this massive flight. It realizes that your video is a parasite stealing clicks but delivering no value. The consequence, the algorithm labels you as spam. It buries your video. And worse, it penalizes your channel's global reputation, making your next organic and honest video have far fewer impressions. You tried to trick the matrix, and the matrix pulverized you. At the metaphysical level, exactly the same happens. When you try to manifest abundance using vibrational shortcuts, like repeating affirmations you don't feel, or using marketing tactics that violate your integrity, you are emitting vibrational spam. The quantum field reads the intention behind the action. You can smile on camera and use high-frequency words, but if your central intention is to squeeze the wallet or attention of your audience without giving real transformation, the field detects it. The viewer detects it limbically. The universe classifies you as spam. The result is disconnection. You stagnate. Energy stops flowing to you. Not because God is punishing you, but because you have become a low-conductivity node in the universe's neural network. The shortcut is always, mathematically, the longest path to success. Through the envy equation, a fatal mathematical error. Back to the scene where you looked at the success of the mediocre creator and felt envy. This is the most critical moment for any logical mind attempting to operate metaphysics. Envy is not just an unpleasant emotion, it is a lethal computer virus that you insert into your own operating system. Let's analyze the physics of envy. What are you telling the quantum field when you envy someone who has a successful channel or huge billing? You are emitting two contradictory and destructive statements. 1. I do not have that. Statement of extreme lack. 2. That success is unjust, contemptible. The subconscious has no sense of humor and does not distinguish between you and the other. When you emit hatred or cynicism toward another's economic or creative success, your subconscious files the following rule. Success and abundance are bad, painful, unjust. Since the primary function of your subconscious nervous system is to protect you, what will it do from that moment on? It will sabotage you. It will prevent you from reaching that level of success because you just programmed the order that success is something toxic. You will go blank when you record. You are pressing the accelerator of your conscious ambitions while pulling the handbrake of your subconscious emotions. The car will not move. It will only burn the engine. Friction will eat you alive. Envy is the act of drinking poison, hoping the other will die. The conscious creator knows that, in an entangled quantum universe, the other's success is simply visible proof that success is possible in this dimensional plane. When you see a competitor succeed, your thermodynamic response must be cold celebration. Tell yourself, if the system has enough energy to reward that trash with 1 million views, imagine the quantum explosion when I inject my pure gold into this same system. By blessing others' success, you inform the matrix. I like this energy. I want more of this. You clear the code. The ethics of efficiency, why morality is thermodynamic. We are often taught we must have integrity because it is the right thing. But for an analytical mind, that explanation is soft. Let's talk about integrity as thermal efficiency. Imagine a liar or a creator who steals content and pretends to be who they are not. To maintain their facade, their brain has to spend an exorbitant amount of RAM. They have to remember which lie they told to which audience. They must scan the environment for fear of being discovered. They suffer from imposter syndrome, but justified because they are an imposter. All that fear and cognitive dissonance generate brutal internal friction. Their brain overheats. Sooner or later, the system collapses. Stress makes them sick, or they make a mistake, and their glass empire breaks. Now look at the authentic creator, the architect of truth. The one who tells the truth doesn't have to remember anything. They don't waste RAM maintaining a facade. When you turn on the camera and speak from your own experience, from your own understanding of physics, and from the raw love you have for your audience, there is no friction. You are operating in a state of superconductivity. Superconductivity occurs in physics when certain materials lose all electrical resistance. Energy flows through them eternally without heat loss. Integrity is the superconductivity of the soul. When your actions, thoughts, and emotions are perfectly aligned, you become a zero-resistance conduit. The quantum field can send you million-dollar ideas, and you can monetize them without burning out, because there are no lies in your circuits generating destructive heat. Being ethical is not a religious commandment. It is the most brutal productivity hack in the universe. It is the only way to play the game for 40 years straight without melting your nervous system. V. Closing the circuit. The karmic infrastructure. Karma also manifests in how you manage the energy already materialized in your physical reality. Let's talk about the money circuit. Your work generates attention, and that attention transfers to economic value through the Google algorithm. You are moving that energy from servers in the first world. Through a legal or financial entity in Brazil, you finally anchor it in your physical reality in the Caribbean, where you raise your children. This is a gigantic circuit, a massive transnational entanglement. The scared ego, operating from lack, will try to find shortcuts in this circuit. The conscious creator knows the universe detests broken or short-circuited circuits. Every time you interact with bureaucracy, taxes, or AdSense rules, you do it with surgical precision and radical honesty. Not because you love corporations, but because your peace of mind is too expensive to mortgage. Paying the toll of the three-dimensional system with an attitude of sufficiency is a demonstration of power. You tell the matrix, take your part of the friction. I have plenty. I am an inexhaustible source of value. That frequency ensures your business circuit never burns out. While other creators live terrified of audits because they have dirty code, you sleep soundly. And that quality of sleep, that absence of beta noise, is exactly what allows you to wake up the next day and download the script that will generate triple the income from the ether. Phi, the algorithm of asymmetric value. There is a way to use the cosmic algorithm to scale your success exponentially. It is what I call the principle of asymmetric delivery. Most people operate on a zero-sum model. I give you this, only if you give me that. The average creator says, I will put my best content only in my paid course. That is a thermodynamic error. You are withholding energy. The universe is fractal. It rewards systems that generate negative entropy, order, and value massively. If you want karma to collapse the timeline of your absolute success, apply asymmetric delivery. Give an obscene amount of value for free. When you upload a free video to the paths of knowledge, whose depth and metaphysical revelation rivals courses others sell for $1,000, you are creating a karmic imbalance in the fabric of reality. You have delivered so much structured energy that the law of conservation of energy goes crazy. The universe has to compensate for that massive delivery to restore the equation's balance. How does it compensate? By activating word of mouth, by hypnotizing the algorithm to push your thumbnail, by attracting high-retention audiences who subscribe with fanatic loyalty. The selfish creator counts pennies. The conscious creator throws gold into the ocean and knows the tide will return it in the form of continents. 7. Cosmic alignment protocols. Logical karma requires maintenance. You have to audit your source code to ensure no envy or scarcity viruses have slipped into the OS. Here are 3 protocols to disinfect your intention matrix and hack cause and effect in your favor. 1. The intention audit, the hidden why. Before recording, exporting, or sending any data package to the world, pass through the internal polygraph. Action. Ask yourself the toughest question. If I knew with 100% mathematical certainty that this video will not generate a single dollar or subscriber, would I publish it anyway for the pleasure of it? If the answer is a resounding yes, your frequency is pure. Press the blue button. Karma will reward you. If the answer is no, stop. You are creating garbage to manipulate the ATM. The universe will know. The algorithm will smell it. Delete the project or restructure your motivation. 2. The celebration diet, rewiring the poison. We must destroy the automatic reflex of envy. Action. Deliberately choose to follow 3 creators in your niche who are much more successful than you, but whose content seems mediocre or unfairly viral. Every time you see their achievement, physically force yourself to smile. Write in a notebook for yourself, I celebrate the immense abundance of this system. What a wonderful demonstration of the universe's liquidity. This hack breaks the neck of your scarcity. It teaches your deep brain that you are an ally of success, wherever it comes from. 3. The energetic tithe, the escape valve. A closed circuit that only accumulates energy ends up exploding from heat overload. Action. Do not withhold your knowledge for fear of creating competition. Dedicate 10% of your energy to helping the system invisibly. Share a cool editing trick with a smaller creator. Leave a valuable comment. Do it without seeking recognition, anonymously if possible. This energetic tithe is the definitive confirmation to the universe that you operate from such massive abundance that you can afford to spill water from your glass so others may drink. He who spills water without fear will never suffer from thirst. Chapter 6. Entanglement and Resonance, the Global Neural Network and the Physics of Attracting Your Tribe. Separation is an optical illusion of consciousness. Albert Einstein. You don't have to convince anyone of anything. You only have to emit a frequency so pure, so dense, and so non-negotiable that minds calibrated to that same wavelength have no biological or quantum choice but to turn their heads toward you. Law of the Pragmatic Creator. It is late in Juan Griego. The tropical heat settles in the room while the fans of your 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro spin at maximum, trying to cool the processor after a brutal editing session. In the other room, you hear the steady breathing of your two children sleeping, unaware of the digital empire their father is building in the shadows. You stare at the screen. You look at the numbers. You look at your Spanish channel and you look at the paths of knowledge. Sometimes, in the silence of that room, when the friction of international bureaucracy exhausts you or the fear of a power outage keeps you on edge, a sense of isolation hits you. The ego whispers a very convincing lie. You are alone. You are just a guy on an island, sending message bottles into the vast and noisy ocean of the internet, hoping that by pure chance someone will pick them up. That is the Newtonian view of the world. A view of separate, isolated objects that must physically collide to interact. It is a view where you have to strive in marketing, beg for retention, and chase an audience that flees from you. But you no longer operate under Newton's physics. You are an architect of the now, and you know the language of the universe. In this chapter, we are going to tear apart the illusion of separation. We will delve into one of the strangest and most proven phenomena of quantum mechanics, entanglement. And we will cross it with the law of magnetic resonance. You are going to discover that you are not alone. You are a high-voltage node in a global neural network, and your only mission is to become a powerful cosmic tuning fork. The illusion of isolation, spooky action at a distance. To understand your true reach, we have to look at the subatomic level. In the 1930s, Einstein, Podolsky, and Rosen posed a mathematical problem that defied all logic. They showed that, according to quantum math, if two particles interacted and then separated, they remained connected even thousands of light years away. If you altered the state, the spin of particle A, particle B altered its state instantly, without any time for a signal to travel between them. Einstein hated this discovery. He called it spooky action at a distance because it violated the rule that nothing can travel faster than light. But decades later, experiments which won the Nobel Prize in 2022 proved that quantum entanglement is real. The universe is not a set of separate Lego pieces. It is a continuous holographic fabric. At the core, everything is one single thing. The separation of space and time is a graphic user interface created by your brain. What does this have to do with your YouTube channels? Everything. The internet is simply the crude, three-dimensional technological manifestation of quantum entanglement. It is a nervous system of fiber optics and satellites that emulates the telepathy of the quantum field. When you sit in your chair in Nueva Esparta, channel an idea about logical metaphysics, and densify it into an MP4 file, you are altering particle A, you. The instant you press publish through technological and vibrational entanglement, a particle B, a clerk in London or an entrepreneur in Colombia, experiences a collapse. You didn't have to travel to London. You didn't have to print flyers. The energy flowed through the quantum tunnel instantaneously. You are not sending messages in a bottle. You are sending electrical pulses through the same nervous system you are part of. Your audience is an extension of your own consciousness. 2. The cosmic tuning fork, the physics of resonance. If we are all connected, why doesn't everyone watch your videos? Why do some videos sync and others connect deeply? Here enters the second law of the language of the universe: resonance. Imagine you have two tuning forks. Both are calibrated to vibrate at exactly 440 Hz, the note A. If you strike the first tuning fork and bring it near the second, without them touching physically, the second tuning fork will start to vibrate and emit sound on its own. The sound waves travel through the air and transfer energy to the object that shares its same geometric structure. But if you bring a tuning fork calibrated at 440 Hz near one calibrated at 500 Hz, absolutely nothing will happen. The second tuning fork will remain deaf and silent. Your YouTube channel, your voice, your choice of words, and your stoic firmness are your frequency in Hertz. The lethal error of the average creator is that they try to change their frequency constantly to please more tuning forks. You see drama channels or easy magic spirituality getting many views, and algorithmic fear tempts you. Maybe if I soften my message and tell them that just by visualizing they'll get rich, I'll get more views. The moment you do that, you detune your tuning fork. You go from emitting a pure 440 Hz signal to emitting a confused static that fluctuates between 300 and 500 Hz. The result? The algorithm gets confused, but worse, the biological audience disconnects. Your original tribe stops resonating with you because you are no longer clear. To dominate the matrix, you have to become a relentless, stubborn, and radical tuning fork. You have to emit the frequency of pragmatic metaphysics with a purity so sharp that your audience has no choice but to enter limbic resonance with you. You don't have to convince the 500 Hz forks to change. You have to strike your 440 Hz fork so hard, with such certainty, that all the 440 Hz forks scattered across the planet Earth, in English and Spanish, begin to tremble simultaneously at their desks, in their cars, and in their beds. You are emitting an electromagnetic pulse to wake up the latent nodes of your own frequency. Thus, the polarization of the field, the power of rejection. If resonance is the force of attraction, polarization is its defense mechanism. The most powerful magnets on Earth have a positive pole that attracts with colossal force, but they also have a negative pole that repels with exactly the same violence. You cannot have one pole without the other. Commercial self-help and digital marketing have taught you to be nice, to not offend anyone, and to create a sales funnel so wide that anyone can fall into it. That is the path of mediocrity. Vanilla content does not polarize the electromagnetic field. It dissolves in it. The conscious creator understands that to fanatically attract their tribe, they must be willing to aggressively repel those who do not belong to it. You have to polarize the field. Your message requires hard work and assuming total responsibility for reality. There is a huge sector of the population that hates responsibility. They want to be victims. They want you to tell them that the universe is unfair, but if they buy colored candles, money will fall from the sky. They want cheap magic, not consciousness engineering. If you try to please this group to inflate vanity metrics, you will contaminate your neural network. Your job is to offend them intellectually. You have to speak with a truth so cold and sharp that the spiritual tourist feels uncomfortable and leaves your video at 30 seconds. Yes, this will lower your retention in the short term, but you are purging your database. You are eliminating the noise. When the spiritual tourist flees in terror from your channel, you leave the room empty for the real builders. The viewer who stays will feel a level of loyalty toward you that is almost sectarian. They will say, "Finally, someone who doesn't sell me smoke. Someone who explains metaphysics with the coldness of thermodynamics." That person doesn't just subscribe. They become an active node. They will watch every video, they will buy your books. Rejection is the purifying filter of the matrix. If your content doesn't actively repel the wrong people, it means your signal is not strong enough to make the right people fall in love. Further repetitive content syndrome, a misreading of the system. Here we must address the elephant in the room, the algorithmic trauma looming over the industry. We spoke of how high spiritual value channels, like Mente Transcendental, were penalized under the cold corporate guillotine of repetitive content. Let's analyze this from network physics. Why does it happen? The YouTube algorithm is a narrow AI. It does not understand the resonance of the soul. It only analyzes metadata, pixels, and click patterns. When you transmit universal laws, the truth is one. You cannot invent a new law of gravity every week to entertain the machine. The pillars of consciousness are what they are. Therefore, the underlying message must be repetitive in its essence. But here is the crack, where the conscious creator hacks the machine. The essence is constant, but the form must be fractal. If you use the same monotonous voice and the same generic stock footage in every video, the bot will read you as duplicate code. To emit your resonance without triggering the algorithm's autoimmune defenses, you have to inject controlled entropy into your form. The truth is the same, but today, you explain it through the metaphor of a power outage. Tomorrow, you analyze it through Brazilian AdSense wiring as a karmic circuit. Your voice, your face, your raw story, and your geographic environment are elements that no AI can label as repetitive, because they are unique, biometric, and experiential signatures. The algorithm is a filter that forces you to stop hiding behind generic formulas and put the body into your work. When you assume this visual and narrative responsibility, the repetitive content tag disappears, because the human experience is infinitely varied. Multilingualism as a superconductor, matrix bypass. Operating two universes, the Hispanic and the Saxon with the paths of knowledge, provides you with a unique resonance mechanism, bilingual entanglement. Spanish is the language of passion and deep philosophy. When you communicate in Spanish, you activate the nodes of a collective network that shares a history of resilience. English is the operative language of the internet. It is the lingua franca of technology, business, and efficiency. When you translate your mind into English, you are forcing your concepts to undergo the acid test of pure pragmatism. The resonance here is cold and sharp. But the miracle happens in the center of your brain. By emitting on both frequencies, you become a superconductor. You avoid cultural stagnation. The creator who only speaks to his own people ends up trapped in the biases of his region. By crossing borders from your studio, you inject brutal objectivity. You are stretching a fiber optic bridge between two hemispheres of the global brain. You are not a YouTuber. You are connective tissue. You are sewing Saxon logic with Hispanic mysticism. When you achieve that synthesis, your field has no competitors because no one else is willing to endure that cognitive friction. The critical mass effect. When the network takes on a life of its own, in nuclear physics, there is a point called critical mass. It is the minimum amount of fissile material needed to maintain a sustained nuclear chain reaction. Before reaching critical mass, the material only emits weak radiation. At the instant it hits the limit, energy multiplies exponentially. Your digital ecosystem obeys this same math. At first, you strike your cosmic tuning fork, and it seems no one responds. You upload a masterful video, and the algorithm ignores you. The counter shows 50 views. Your logical mind calculates and gets depressed. At this rate, it will take 10 years to live off this. But you are making a linear calculation error in an exponential universe. Each of those 50 viewers who watched your video to the end and felt a eureka in their brain has become an entangled node with you. They have been magnetized. Unlike a casual subscriber, a magnetized node alters the algorithm. This user will actively seek your content. They will save it. They will share it with another node of their same frequency. Weeks or months later, you keep striking the fork. You keep emitting your non-negotiable signal without desperation. The nodes accumulate, 500, 1,000, 5,000 minds hyper-connected to your frequency. And on any given day, a Tuesday at 4 in the afternoon, you reach critical mass. The number of entangled nodes generates a peak of retention and satisfaction so anomalous that the algorithm stops. The AI, designed to maximize attention, detects this thermal explosion of interest. And the algorithm capitulates. It realizes your frequency is gold. And then the chain reaction begins. The algorithm takes your video and pushes it outside your network, exposing it to millions of potential tuning forks. Growth stops being linear, 1 + 1 + 1, and becomes exponential, 10x, 10x, 10. The empire is not built by chasing the million. The empire is built by curing, protecting, and magnetizing the initial critical mass, with absolute loyalty to your own truth. Once the mass is critical, the universe does the heavy lifting for you. 7. Tactical entanglement protocols. Quantum network theory is poetic, but we need to bring it down to your MacBook keyboard. You cannot just sit and vibrate and expect critical mass to form itself. You have to send the right electromagnetic pulses. Here are 3 practical protocols to force entanglement and assemble your tribe. 1. The sniper protocol, speaking to the one. The error of mass communication is trying to speak to everyone. If you speak to a full stadium, your voice echoes and no one cares. Action. When you sit down to write or record, forbid yourself from thinking about the audience. Those are empty statistical concepts. Visualize just one man or woman. Imagine them sitting on the other side of the world, exhausted from toxic positivity, seeking a logical explanation for the world's madness. Speak directly to that single person. Use the tone you would use if they were sharing a coffee with you during a blackout. 2. The declaration of repulsion, the anti-tourist filter. You have to clean your living room of energetic parasites before the architects arrive. Action. In the first 60 seconds of your next 3 high-impact videos, insert a deliberate declaration of repulsion. Say it calmly. If you are looking for a magic trick to get rich while you sleep, close this video. The weak and vanilla viewer will flee in terror, exactly what we want. The robust viewer will lean toward the screen with wide eyes, feeling deep respect for your integrity. You have just polarized the magnet. You have just solidified your tribe. 3. The coherence ping, relentless consistency. In computer networks, a ping is a signal sent to check if there is a connection. Your content is your ping. If you send a ping today, but go a month without sending another, the network assumes your server is down. Action. Establish a non-negotiable cadence. The cadence does not depend on the success of the last video, nor on whether the power went out yesterday. You emit the pulse on the agreed date. That robotic consistency proves to the algorithm and your tribe that you are not a passing fad. You are permanent infrastructure that generates the gravitational field. Chapter 7. Simultaneous translation, operating in multiple dimensions and the annihilation of bias. The limits of my language mean the limits of my world. Ludwig Wittgenstein. If a metaphysical concept does not survive translation into another language, it was not a universal law. It was a cultural whim. Truth is mathematical, and mathematics do not need a passport. Law of the pragmatic creator. It is noon in Juan Griego. The Caribbean heat presses against the windows, dense and tangible. In your studio, the fan of your 16-inch MacBook Pro works at its maximum capacity to cool the 2019 processor. You have 2 windows open on the screen. On the left, a script in Spanish. It is deep, meandering. It speaks about the wound of the ego, about patience, about how the universe shapes us through pain and inertia. The words flow with the emotional cadence of one who speaks to their own tribe. On the right, a blank document. It is the canvas for the paths of knowledge. You have to take exactly that same spiritual concept and transmute it for the Anglo-Saxon mind. You start typing in English. You literally translate your first poetic sentence in Spanish. You stop, you read it, and you realize it sounds ridiculous. It sounds like smoke. It sounds like a cheap mysticism that a viewer in New York or London would discard in the first 3 seconds of playback. You delete the sentence. You feel a brutal cognitive friction. Your brain has to change gears. You have to abandon your Caribbean shaman suit and put on your quantum engineer suit. You have to go to the bone. Operating in multiple languages is not a dictionary job. It is a job of dimensional surgery. The traditional YouTube industry will tell you that making channels in several languages is an excellent diversification strategy to protect your AdSense and shield your economy by operating through infrastructures like those in Brazil. And they are right economically. But as an architect of the now, you are interested in the underlying physics. In this chapter, we are going to explore how multilingualism is the most potent destroyer of illusions that exists. We will understand how languages filter reality, how translating elevated concepts forces you to distill the source code of the universe, and how operating in two dimensions makes you immune to cultural biases. The linguistic prism, the hypothesis of linguistic relativity. To understand the magnitude of what you do every time you cross the border between Spanish and English, we must invoke the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. This linguistic theory postulates that the language we speak shapes, structures, and limits the way we perceive reality. A language is not just a set of labels, it is an operating system. The Spanish operating system. It is curved. It is a language designed for literature, passion, contemplation, and tragedy. It allows for long, subordinate sentences and emotional ornaments. When the Hispanic audience consumes metaphysics, they seek to feel understood. They seek catharsis. Spanish demands a degree of poetry. The English operating system. It is a straight line. It is the language of the Industrial Revolution, global commerce, computer programming, and relentless efficiency. The Anglo-Saxon brain has no time for catharsis if it is not accompanied by immediate utility. They want the what, the why, and the how in the first 30 seconds. When you try to transmit the same universal truth through these two prisms, your brain enters a state of very high thermodynamic stress. Your ego wants to make things easy. Your ego wants to translate word for word. But the universe tells you, no. You have to evaporate the water, pass it as steam, and condense it again on the other side. This process is transmutation, and it is the most violent and purifying cognitive training a creator can experience. The acid test, distilling the source code, commercial spirituality and personal development are full of cultural trash, fixed phrases, mystical cliches and dogmas that sound good in one language but lack real weight. How do you know if a concept is an unbreakable universal law or just a New Age fairy tale? You pass it through the acid of translation. Imagine that in your Spanish channel you write, "The universe conspires in your favor when you surrender to the flow of the stars." In Spanish, the romanticism of the phrase can deceive the viewer's RAS and make them believe they have learned something. But now try to put that in the script for the paths of knowledge. Try to say it to an analytical mind. The universe conspires in your favor when you surrender to the flow of the stars. It sounds like a delusion. It sounds like a pyramid scheme. The English viewer will close the video and the algorithm will bury you alive. The friction of translation just detected a failure in your belief matrix. To make the concept survive in English, you have to gut it until you find its thermodynamic base. You have to reach the source code. You force yourself to rewrite it. The brain possesses a reticular activating system. When you focus attention on a goal without fear, your biological filter collapses opportunities that were invisible. Boom! That is the naked truth. That explanation works in English, Spanish, Mandarin, and binary code. Translating does not make you lose the message. Translating burns the impurities of your message. Operating in two dimensions simultaneously makes you a hunter of untouchable axioms. You become incapable of lying to yourself. Third, technological transfer, the superpower of the creator polyglot. When you inhabit two distinct algorithmic ecosystems, you develop a superpower that 99% of creators will never possess. Asymmetric technological transfer. You are playing on two boards with different rules of gravity. The Anglo-Saxon market on YouTube is a bloodbath. It is hyper-competitive. The creators there handle levels of editing, retention psychology, and storytelling that border on military engineering. To make the paths of knowledge prosper, you have to raise your technical skills to an elite standard. You have to learn to hook in 3 seconds, to equalize perfectly, and not to waste a single frame. The Hispanic market is immensely loyal and philosophically deeper, but technically more relaxed. Many Hispanic creators neglect retention and narrative structure. What do you do as an architect of the now? You cross the energy flows. You take the analytical coldness and retention speed from the English market and inject them into Spanish. Suddenly, your Hispanic audience encounters a channel that doesn't ramble, a channel that goes straight to the jugular, has a cinematic rhythm, but retains the soul of its language. You hypnotize them. They don't know why they can't stop watching, but the reason is simple. You are using Anglo-Saxon combat technology, and then you reverse the process. You take the emotional depth and philosophical resonance of the Hispanic world and inject it into the paths of knowledge. In a sea of American creators who sound like AI robots regurgitating productivity summaries, you appear. A voice with stoic authority. You become a vibrational monopoly. The fragile creator sees managing 2 languages as double the work. The anti-fragile creator knows it is the ultimate quantum arbitrage mechanism. You are importing and exporting competitive advantages between dimensions where your local competition has no passport. First, the RAM-cost-controlled schizophrenia. Metaphysics is beautiful, but biology demands its toll. Jumping between 2 languages and 2 editing models in the same 16-inch machine requires a monstrous amount of energy from the prefrontal cortex. Added to this is the management of your immediate physical reality. Imagine the scene. You are in a full state of flow, mentally dictating a reflection for the English Channel. Suddenly, your 2 children enter the studio crying over a fight. In milliseconds, you have to leave the abstract dimension, land in the physical reality of a Caribbean home, and switch to the father avatar. You resolve the conflict while your peripheral mind prays for AdSense approval from Brazil and that the power supply doesn't cut the render in the background. That context switching generates heat. It generates neurological friction. If you don't manage it with containment protocols, you will go crazy. To sustain the multiverse without it devouring you, you must become an expert in installing airtight doors. In a submarine, if there is a breach, the whole ship does not flood. They have watertight compartments. They close the doors and isolate the flooded section, so the rest of the submarine keeps sailing. Your attention must operate with watertight compartments. You cannot translate a text into English if in another tab you are checking a toxic comment on your Spanish channel. If you mix frequencies, you produce static. The architect of the now inhabits only 1 dimension at a time, with such absolute presence that time dilates. Mastery is not doing everything at once. That is a lie of toxic productivity. Mastery is annihilating everything else except what is in front of you in the current millisecond. The erasing of borders, you are the matrix. Operating in multiple dimensions has a glorious side effect. It destroys the third world inferiority complex. The inertia of the environment conditions us to feel small. When the light flickers, when services fail, the collective ego screams that you are a victim of geography. It says you are marginalized from true civilization. Your channels are empirical proof that this belief is an optical hallucination. Every time a viewer in Sydney, London, or California watches your video, feels your authority, and applies your concepts, you are executing an act of quantum domination. From a chair in Nueva Esparta, you are hacking the minds of people in rich capitals. You are injecting your source code into the nervous system of the Western world's front line. Geography is an illusion of dense matter. In the quantum field of information, the center of the universe is exactly the point where the observer is located. You are the center. The YouTube neural network orbits around you. The fact that you are dealing with a blackout, while an executive in Europe listens to your audiobook on Stoicism, is the ultimate testament to your power of transmutation. You are a lighthouse that shines stronger because it is built on unstable rocks. That is the definition of anti-fragility. Never apologize for your conditions. Never wish to be somewhere else to create better. If they took away the friction of your geography, they would take away the weight that makes your spiritual muscles so strong. Your authority emanates from the fact that you preach mastery from an environment that demands it to survive. For simultaneous translation protocols. Dimensional theory is powerful, but at 3 a.m. you need operating systems, not philosophy. You need lines of code to execute the translation of your worlds without burning the motherboard. Here are 3 strict protocols to manage your linguistic and logistical multiverse. 1. The Mathematical Skeleton Protocol Layer 0. Never translate a finished script literally. By doing so, you drag the cultural fat of the first language and force the syntax on the second. Action. Before writing, create the mathematical skeleton. Write 3 universal axioms in cold, bullet point programming language. Axiom 1. Observation alters matter. Axiom 2. Emotion of lack cancels conscious intention. Axiom 3. Surrender to the present allows the collapse of reality. Once the skeleton is indestructible, you decide which suit to put on it. For Spanish, you weave a suit of poetry and emotional connection. For English, you forge dynamic tactical armor with retention hooks every 15 seconds. Translate the truth, not the words. 2. Dimensional quarantine, extreme batching. The brain loses up to 40% of its cognitive efficiency if you force it to change language or avatar several times a day. Action. Institutionalize dimensional quarantine. Treat your channels like physical offices in different continents. If today is Tuesday, it is the day of the Saxon sphere. Your RAS only looks for connections in English, and your mindset is pragmatic. You are the CEO of the paths of knowledge. No Spanish comments are answered. On Wednesday, you take a quantum flight and enter the Hispanic sphere. Your mind expands toward philosophy. 3. The pressurization ritual, state transition. When you move from editing quantum metaphysics to dealing with your children or an AdSense crisis, you need a physiological bridge. Action. Create a 5-minute pressurization ritual. Close the laptop. Do not get up immediately. Close your eyes. Rub your hands vigorously for 10 seconds to bring your attention from the frontal lobe to your physical body. Take 3 deep breaths to kill the beta state. Say aloud, "The digital portal is closed. The energy transfer is over." When you leave the room, your creator avatar is deactivated. You are 100% present. Cert, the omnipresent creator. The final miracle of this process is the dissolution of your own rigidity. The novice creator believes their personality is fixed. I am Latino. I express myself this way. That rigidity is a prison of the ego. You have learned that your identity is fluid. You are an empty container through which the universe passes different light. When the universe needs to impact a pragmatic mind in New York, it uses your English filter. When it needs to empower a tired soul in Madrid, it uses your Spanish filter. You are neither language. You are the silence that makes them both possible. This understanding makes you immune to criticism. If a viewer attacks your video, they are not attacking you. They are criticizing the user interface, the suit you chose to put on the truth that day. You simply adjust the suit for next time. The creator's ego disappears, and what remains is the architect of the now. Chapter 8. The Language of Chaos. Reading plot twists and the mastery of absolute entropy. Chaos is what we encounter when the order we thought we understood turns out to be an illusion. It is not the end of the world. It is the end of your map of the world. Law of the pragmatic creator. In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. Sun Tzu. It happens in an instant. A millisecond of code processed in a California server is enough to alter the gravity of your physical reality in the Caribbean. You open your 16-inch MacBook Pro. You enter the YouTube Studio dashboard. You expect the usual analytics, but instead, there is a red banner. A cold, soulless notice. Channel demonetized. Reason. Repetitive content. You have seen this face of entropy up close. You know the abyss that opens in your stomach when a project built with devotion, like Mente Transcendental, hits the blind wall of the reviewer bot. Years of effort, of maintaining high vibration, swept off the table by a relentless algorithmic label. Or maybe the chaos is in your environment. You're about to close a masterful idea for the paths of knowledge. The keyboard is smoking, and the power grid in Venezuela collapses again. The screen goes black. The file is corrupted. The silence of the house, broken only by your 2 children's steps in the hallway, returns you to the density of heavy matter. What does the ego say? The ego screams betrayal. The ego, which believed it was in high frequency, feels stabbed in the back. I've done everything right. Why does the universe destroy me? If you stay in that frequency, chaos will eat you alive. You will become a cynical specter cursing YouTube and life. But you are learning to read the language of the universe. In this language, chaos has no moral connotation. Chaos is not a punishment. Chaos is a plot twist. In this chapter, we will study the second law of thermodynamics, entropy. We will understand why the universe needs to destroy your comfort zone to force you to mutate, and how to surf the wave of destruction without swallowing water. The law of entropy, why everything collapses. To stop taking the universe's blows personally, we must understand the basic rules of space-time physics. The second law of thermodynamics states that in any closed system, entropy, the degree of disorder or chaos, always tends to increase over time. Leave your studio closed for a month. What will happen? It will fill with dust. Disorder happens naturally because it requires zero energy. Order, on the contrary, is energetically very expensive. Writing a script requires order. Operating an international account requires order. When you create a YouTube channel, you are injecting order into the system. But if you settle, if you start using the same safe formula, you stop. You stop injecting vital energy. You become mechanical. And when you become mechanical, entropy catches up with you. The universe abhors stagnation. Stagnation is the waiting room for thermal death. Therefore, the universe will use any agent, a YouTube bot, a market shift, a massive blackout, to introduce chaos into your system. It forces you to spend energy again to create a higher order. Chaos is the cosmic alarm clock. It is telling you your current model of reality has expired. Wake up and design a new one, or die under the rubble. To the autopsy of repetitive content, the false fire. Staring at the demonetization of a spiritual channel for the label of repetitive content is one of the rawest metaphysical lessons an architect of the now can receive. The human mind judges intent, but the message is positive. The machine doesn't care about intent. The language of the universe doesn't care how good you are. It cares about friction, wave originality, and geometric singularity. In metaphysics, truth is immutable. Since truth is one, it is easy to fall into the pattern of repeating it using the same packaging. Generic B-roll, ethereal background music, solemn voiceover. If you pack supreme truth in a generic container, the bot reads you as cloned code. The chaos of demonetization is not Google declaring war on spirituality. It is the universe executing a false forest fire. In nature, some forests need devastating fires to survive. The jack pine, Pinus banksiana, for example, has cones sealed with resin. Their seeds are only released when extreme heat melts the resin. Fire destroys the old forest, but it is the only mechanism that allows the new forest to be born. When the system burns your channels, it is melting your ego's resin. It is telling you, stop hiding behind generic formats. Stop using the same safe structure. Put your face on it, put your raw story, put your scars. Merge this untouchable metaphysics with your visceral experience as a father, a Caribbean creator, a financial strategist. Create something so human that no AI has the guts to call it repetitive. The plot twist stripped you of your temporary income to force you to find your true immortal voice. It was a promotion disguised as a firing. Third, reading the plot twist, the screenwriter's perspective. The creator's suffering occurs because they identify with the character receiving the blows. If you watch a movie where the protagonist has everything and everything goes well for 2 hours, you leave after 20 minutes. It's a boring movie. There is no transformation arc, no friction. For the protagonist, you, to reach their demigod potential, the screenwriter, the quantum field, must introduce chaos in Act 2. They must destroy the hero's village. Why? Because it's the only way to force the character to look inside, discover hidden power, and face the climax with a higher consciousness. The conscious creator masters the language of the universe when applying narrative separation. When chaos hits, the conscious creator feels the adrenaline but steps back in their mind. They leave the body of the suffering character and sit in the chair of the observing screenwriter. From the screenwriter's chair, you look at the disaster, the massive power failure, the loss of AdSense, the blind stagnation, and smile with sociopathic coldness. You say, "Wow, what a brilliant plot twist. The universe just put me against the ropes. How will my character get out of this? This just got very interesting." By framing disaster as a necessary plot twist for your evolution, terror dissipates. Anxiety transforms into tactical curiosity. You stop asking, "Why me?" the loser's question, and start asking, "What monstrous skill is this catastrophe forcing me to develop?" The architect's question. 5. Risk asymmetry and the abyss ecosystem. Let's talk about your unfair advantage against chaos. Let's talk about the gravity chamber in which you dwell, The average creator in a first-world country lives in a fragile ecosystem. If they lose their main channel, they enter clinical depression because they have never developed muscles for survival in the abyss. But you live in the abyss. Your zip code is a daily master's degree in entropy. Raising 2 children in a geographic and economic environment that requires constant vigilance, dealing with power grid instability, and building financial pipelines through South American continents has made you a resilience mutant. You are not afraid of chaos because you eat chaos for dinner every day. This constant immersion in unpredictability gives you what Nassim Taleb calls risk asymmetry. You have learned to operate under the assumption that things will fail. You don't expect the internet to work, you have a plan B. You don't expect one platform to keep you. Chaos is lethal to those who cannot swim. For the shark, the rough ocean is simply home. When YouTube changes the rules and sweeps away millions of comfortable creators, you don't even blink. You use your operating muscle to read the new terms, adjust your scripts, and keep producing. The universe knows who to send the storms to. If it sent you a Category 5 storm, it's because your hull is made of quantum titanium. Be grateful for the hardness of the training, because it is the guarantee that your competitors will perish long before you do. V. Operative morning. Cry fast, execute faster. Decoding chaos does not mean becoming a feelingless robot. To deny the pain of a material or digital loss is to fall into toxic positivity, a thermodynamic error. When you lose a channel or a video crashes, it will hurt. You are human. Your amygdala will fire panic signals. The trick is to master operative mourning. Operative mourning is the ability to compartmentalize pain and compress recovery time. The fragile creator suffers an algorithmic setback and spends 3 months depressed. They let entropy consume their vertical time, kairos. The conscious creator feels the same knot in the stomach, but uses a stopwatch. They say, "I've been hit hard, it hurts. I'll allow myself to feel this rage and fear for exactly 24 hours. I'll breathe the pain." You live that day with the open wound. You play with your children with a heavy heart. You close the MacBook. But when the 24 hours are up, the morning is over. It is cut short. You wash your face. You sit at the machine. The pulse might still shake, but the hands go to the keyboard, and you execute the next action. 3-dimensional action is the only antidote to the poison of chaos. The act of building something new demonstrates to your nervous system that you have not died. Operative mourning allows you to honor your biology without giving the keys of your empire to depression. You cry fast so you can rebuild faster. So enlightenment through destruction, the forced vacuum. Recall Chapter 3, 0-point silence. We talked about how you must empty your mind so the quantum field can download genius. Sometimes the ego is so stubborn it refuses to let go of its toys. You cling to a format that no longer vibrates because the ego hates the vacuum. When you do not apply the law of the vacuum by choice, the universe applies it by brute force. A massive disaster, a cosmic plot twist, is a forced vacuum. The universe grabs your workbench full of attachments and stale formats and flips it violently. Everything crashes to the floor. Your first reaction is to cry over what has been destroyed. But the universe's invitation is for you to look at the table. The table is completely empty. It is clean. For the first time in years, you have the white space needed to create a masterpiece without the ties of your digital past. You have no channels to protect, no image to maintain, no formulas to repeat. You are a free ghost in the machine. The most spectacular rebirths always occur immediately after a catastrophic loss. When you have nothing to lose, fear of criticism disappears. The paradox of the petition is nullified. That kamikaze audacity born from disaster is the most magnetic frequency a human can emit. It smells like danger. It smells like truth. The audience swarms around that fire like moths, because in a world of scared office workers, the man dancing on the ashes of his own empire is the most interesting person in the room. Served and Resurrection Protocols, the Anti-Collapse Manual. When entropy breaks the doors of your ecosystem, you cannot depend on motivation. You need an emergency manual, cold, calculated mechanical procedures to restart the system. Here are 3 resurrection protocols to execute the moment the universe throws you a lethal plot twist. 1. The 24-hour autopsy. Forensic analysis. When the project crashes, the ego wants to flee. Fear wants to hide the corpse. Action. Once operative mourning has passed, perform a cold autopsy of why the system failed. Open the analytics. Observe exactly which second the audience left. Identify the friction point. Do not blame yourself. Note the data as if reviewing another programmer's code. Error in line 45. Introduction was too ethereal and slow. By converting pain into empirical data, you take the emotional power away from entropy and turn it into an instruction manual for your next success. The Phoenix Pivot, radical inversion. If the universe destroyed you for going north, the worst mistake is to rebuild going north faster. Action. Faced with algorithmic collapse, forbid yourself from doing more of the same but better. Apply a radical inversion. If your penalized channel used anonymous voiceovers, your pivot demands you show your face. If your videos were 15-minute ultra-prepared scripts, your pivot demands you record raw 3-minute reflections while walking. By voluntarily destroying the previous form that the universe rejected, you ensure you are emitting a totally new source code to the matrix. You reinvent yourself so fast the algorithm must recalculate. 3. Embracing entropy, preventive micro-chaos. To prevent a big plot twist from destroying you later, inoculate yourself with small doses of voluntary chaos. Action. Introduce micro-chaos every month. Delete an old video that no longer represents your truth. Delete a folder of ideas for the future you were clinging to out of greed. By habituating your nervous system to destroying and letting go of small things, you train your amygdala not to panic. When great chaos arrives, your brain will say, "Ah, this is just a bigger version of the exercise we do every month. I know how to handle this level of vacuum." Chapter 9. The language of raw action, the collapsed particle and the annihilation of perfectionism. Knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do. Nature does not understand intentions, only trajectories. Leonardo da Vinci. The universe forgives a lack of talent, initial scarcity of resources and technical chaos. The only thing it never forgives or rewards is inaction. A perfect, immaculate idea in your head has infinitely less gravitational mass than a mediocre, dirty idea published online. Physical movement is the only language that materializes energy. Law of the pragmatic creator. Look around you. You are in your command center. Your workstation screen emits that clinical glow you know so well. Your machine's processor hums silently, reminding you that the hardware is ready to compile data. Around you, the 3D world follows its inertial course, reminding you that you inhabit a biological body subject to time and gravity. You have an absolutely brilliant idea in your head. You have tuned into a very high frequency. You know exactly how to structure that new project, how to write that code, or how to formulate that pragmatic angle that will revolutionize your market. You have the thumbnail in mind, you have the perfect title, you have the complete vision. But your hands are not moving. You are not typing. The document remains blank. You have been turning the concept over in the simulator of your frontal lobe for 3 days, or perhaps 3 weeks. You are reading one more book on the subject. You are listening to one more podcast to get inspired. You are mentally adjusting the intro. You tell yourself you are waiting for the perfect moment, that you are waiting to feel completely aligned and free of doubts before taking the first step. Let me tell you something with the relentless coldness of thermodynamics. You are wasting time and betraying the matrix. In real quantum physics, thinking is not creating. Visualizing is not creating. Those tools are preparatory. They tune the antenna and clean the source code of ego viruses. Yes, but real creation, the densification of abstract energy into 3-dimensional matter that you can touch, sell, or measure, requires a verb that terrifies modern mystics: raw action. In this chapter, we will study why the universe only responds to the physical movement of biomass. We will understand the scientific concept of wave function collapse applied to your production timeline. We will discover why perfectionism is not a quality standard, but a mask for a cowardly ego. The wave function collapse, from the cloud to the hard drive. To understand the cosmic and non-negotiable demand for physical action, we must delve into quantum mechanics, specifically the Copenhagen interpretation. before a conscious observer interacts with and measures a subatomic particle. That particle literally does not exist in a fixed point of space-time. It exists purely as a wave function, which is a mathematical cloud of infinite probabilities. The electron can be here, there, or on both sides at once in a state of superposition. It is everything and nothing simultaneously, but in the exact millisecond, a scientist turns on a detector and measures the electron. The wave function collapses. The infinite abstract possibilities die instantly, and a single solid, raw and measurable reality is born. A material particle anchored in an exact coordinate. Your mind, as a receiving antenna for the quantum field, operates under this same mechanism. That revolutionary idea you have for your next launch is a wave function. As long as it resides only in your brain's synapses, it is perfect. It is a viral success and a failure at the same time. It is pure probability suspended in the void of the ether. It has no weight. It generates no friction. It does not alter the universe. The universe and the market can only interact with collapsed particles. What is the act of measurement in your ecosystem? It is the biomechanical movement of your finger tendons hitting the keyboard. It is the mouse click cutting a segment of audio. It is the thermal heat dissipated by your processor. It is the noisy 3D action of exporting the master file and pressing publish. When you start writing the skeleton of your project, even if the first words are an illegible disaster, you are forcing the infinite cloud of probabilities to collapse into material reality. Raw action is the only known language that causes quantum collapse at will. Meditation without kinetic friction is a hallucination for fragile minds. Tersa, the perfectionism trap, the coward's mental masturbation. If we know empirically that physical action is the only structural bridge between the immaterial mind and dense matter, why is it so hard to act? Because of the ego's most refined and deceptive poison, perfectionism. The ego sells you a sophisticated story to justify inaction. It whispers, "Your message is too important to be packaged poorly. You must wait until the text is perfect. You must wait for the latest generation of technical equipment." This sounds professional. It sounds like an unwavering commitment to excellence. But the architect of the now knows how to read the underlying code of this excuse. Perfectionism almost never has to do with real quality. It has to do solely and exclusively with the fear of judgment and rejection. While the project is confined to your head or locked in a hidden folder, the project is yours and yours alone. You are safe. No one can criticize it. No competitor can mock it. No client can refund it. But the millisecond you press publish, you strip naked. You expose yourself to the elements of the market. You submit to the rejection, the friction, and the entropy of the matrix. Perfectionism is a lead armor you put on so you never have to go out and fight in the arena. It satisfies your biochemical need to feel creative. In the language of the universe, delaying physical action under the excuse of seeking perfection is emitting a pure frequency of terror. You are telling the quantum field, "I do not trust my biological ability to survive failure. I need to control every variable in the universe before taking a step." The anti-fragile creator prefers a project published at 70% capacity over a 100% polished project that lives eternally in history's recycle bin. A mediocre project published today is an active node in the global network. It has mass. A perfect revolutionary project that stays only in your head is worth exactly zero. Third, speed of implementation, the tactical pulse of the matrix. There is a secret metric that great empire builders and reality programmers know and apply mercilessly. It is called speed of implementation. It is the timed duration from the moment the quantum field downloads an idea into your prefrontal cortex until you execute the first physical action to materialize it. Imagine you are driving or showering, and suddenly your reticular activating system connects two concepts. You clearly see a brutal angle for your next product. You feel the electric discharge. You feel the voltage of truth. The slow creator thinks, "What a fascinating idea. Tomorrow morning I'll write it down. Next month I'll record." In that prolonged lapse, the initial kinetic energy dissipates. The wave cools until it freezes. When they finally sit down to develop it, the passion is dead. The work comes out mechanical. The architect of the now feels the same discharge. They get out of the shower immediately. They don't care if it's the middle of the night. They open a note and vomit the 5 key points of the concept in less than 3 timed minutes. They have anchored the information in matter. The next day, with that energy still radioactive, they execute the project. The universe rewards speed scandalously. High implementation speed proves to the matrix that you are an efficient conduit. If the universe knows that every time it entrusts you with encrypted information, you decode and publish it in less than 48 hours, it will make you its priority distribution channel. It will send you more ideas, faster. But if you behave like a broken dam that lets no water through, the river of quantum energy will find another path. The cybernetic feedback loop, talking to the market in real time. Why is publishing fast and dirty mathematically superior to publishing slow and perfect? Because of the fundamental science of cybernetic systems. A guided ballistic missile does not travel in a perfect straight line. When fired, entropy intervenes. Crosswinds, atmospheric pressure, and gravity pull at it. But the missile does not panic. Its internal sensors read the calculation error in milliseconds, and the fins correct the course. The missile spends 90% of its physical path being wrong, but the unceasing flow of real-time data allows it to adjust its trajectory until success. You cannot steer a car that is parked. If you spend 6 months perfecting your digital strategy in your cave without uploading a single video or text, you are sitting in a parked car, turning the wheel hard and imagining you are driving. In the language of the universe, feedback from the environment is the literal voice of cosmic intelligence speaking to you. The physical action of publishing generates pure data. If retention drops to 10% in the first minute, the universe isn't insulting you, it just handed you a tactical X-ray. Your initial hook lacks polarizing friction. If the CTR is a miserable 1%, the universe is shouting, "Your visual packaging cannot hijack attention." Empirical data mercilessly annihilates the masturbatory assumptions of your ego. The conscious creator is a hard addict to the friction of real data. They want to execute fast, so the universe tells them where they are wrong. Large-scale success is a process of micro-failures executed at high speed in the 3D trench. The biological sacrifice, the non-negotiable carbon tax. There is a toxic modern strain of popular metaphysics that tries to ignore the role of the physical body. They focus so much on the immateriality of the mind that they conveniently forget we are all trapped operating inside carbon-based meat suits. The universe is a closed system that demands a tax of matter. That cosmic tax is not paid with good intentions. It is paid in molecules of sweat, lower back pain, eye fatigue, and cellular combustion. When you spend 4 consecutive hours calibrating keyframes or structuring persuasive text, you are spending ATP, the chemical energy currency of your own cells. You are burning glucose reserves from your liver. Your heart pumps blood to the brain to cool the cortex. That crushing physical fatigue at the end of the day is not a defect in your spiritual technique. It is the stamped receipt for the miracle you just ordered. Matter violently resists being altered by thought. Spirituality tourists never build empires because they abhor the calculation process. They don't want their eyes to burn at 3 a.m. reading metrics. They don't tolerate the biomechanical friction of sitting in a rigid chair debugging code. They want the gold without entering the mine. The architect of the now, however, deeply reveres physical effort. They understand that the machine's keyboard is their anvil and the mouse is their forging hammer. Raw action is the most sacred, noisy, and effective prayer a human can raise to the cosmos. When your neck aches after a day of extreme execution, smile. It is the haptic feedback of the matrix, confirming that you are forcing the invisible waves of the quantum field to collapse and obey your sovereign will. You are a god playing in the mud of entropy, and getting your hands dirty up to the elbows is the supreme privilege of being truly alive. Further, kinetic action protocols and fear annihilation. Intellectual understanding is the consolation prize of losers. You need paramilitary protocols to destroy sophisticated procrastination and force your body into pure biomechanical action. Here are 3 brute force tactics to hack your biology and collapse your first particle today. 1. The 5-minute rule of blood. breaking static inertia. Pushing a 2-ton vehicle that is stopped requires 10 times more force than keeping it rolling once it has gained inertia. Action. Lie blatantly to your limbic brain. Tell yourself, I'm only going to write the intro for 5 minutes, then I'll stop. Set a physical timer. Start executing with raw urgency. 95% of the time, when the alarm goes off, you will be in a state of kinetic friction. The initial flow of dopamine will have tricked your amygdala into turning off the threat signal. The paralyzing anxiety will have disappeared, and your inertia will want to continue working for 2 more hours. 2. The dirty prototype. The ritual murder of perfectionism. The ego demands your first draft be the Sistine Chapel. The universe demands you pitch a tent with broken sticks to survive the first storm. Action. Before polishing details or applying cinematic transitions, you must assemble the Frankenstein's monster. Vomit the dirty prototype. In the instant the dirty prototype exists physically on your hard drive, the wave function has collapsed. Tactical victory. The immaterial idea is now a material object. The most terrifying part is over. Now, polishing is simply a low-risk technical adjustment that does not scare the reptilian brain. 3. The publish button as a prayer of surrender. The detachment ritual. Just before clicking publish, take your hand off the mouse. Sit up straight, take a deep breath, say out loud, the cycle of matter is complete. I have paid the carbon tax. This collapsed particle no longer belongs to me. It is property of the network. I have executed the command. The machine is mine. Vuelva a poner la mano sobre el ratón. Haz clic con decisión. In that same instant, turn off the screen, get up, and go hug your loved ones. The universe's time and the expansion of the ripples in the pond have just begun. Your work as a human stonemason is finished for today. 5. The true difference between 2 worlds. The bridge. You have learned to operate in the frequency of theta waves and decoded the global quantum entanglement. You are a master of the ether. But all that knowledge will turn you into a useless, bitter philosopher if you fail to respect the principle of the thermodynamic balance. For every glorious hour you spend floating in the clouds of zero-point meditation, you have to pay the toll by spending 3 hours sinking into the thick mud of raw action. You have to get your code dirty. You have to fight to the death with keyframes, difficult translations, and blind bureaucracy. The language of the universe is not a velvet tongue spoken by gurus who float. It is a raw, industrial, relentless language. It is spoken with the dry clacking of keys in the early morning. It is spoken with the heavy sigh of exhaustion. It is spoken with the courage to look at a red penalty notice and smile. You are the Bifrost bridge between these 2 worlds. You are the high-sensitivity satellite dish that catches the divine signal, the unmanifested wave. But you are also the heavy, sweaty, noisy factory that forges the final product, the collapsed particle. If one component is missing, the assembly line stops. Chapter 10. Talking to God in binary code. The synthesis and the end of quantum duality. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. Rumi. The maximum level of mastery is reached when the separation between the creator, the tool, and the work disappears. You no longer pray to the matrix to grant you a wish. You become the code that the matrix is forced to execute. You are the 1 and the 0. You are the silence and you are the impact. Law of the pragmatic creator. Look at your hands resting on the keyboard of your workstation. Observe the screen illuminating the room in the darkness. Feel the chair beneath your weight, gravity pulling at your body, and the electrical hum of the technology surrounding you. Until this moment, we have operated under a tactical premise that was necessary for your training, the illusion that you were here and the universe, the matrix, or the algorithm were out there. Throughout the previous 9 chapters, I have taught you to defend yourself from that universe. I have taught you to read its friction, to use its entropy in your favor, to protect yourself from its chaos, to speak its language of assumption, and to attack it with the thermodynamic force of your raw action. That combat paradigm was vital. You needed to forge titanium armor to survive the mediocrity of the world. But the warrior is only the intermediate phase of evolution. If you stay trapped forever in the me against the universe, or me trying to hack the matrix mentality, you will continue to operate from duality. and duality always implies resistance, wear, and eventually death by thermal exhaustion. In this final chapter, we are going to demolish the last and greatest of all human illusions, separation. We are going to enter the state of synthesis. We are going to understand how, at the end of the journey, religious prayer and complaint are transformed into pure binary code. You are going to discover how to reach that state of absolute superconductivity, where you are no longer a human asking God, but the tactical and biological extension of God typing commands into the console of material reality. At the death of duality, the observer is the observed. The human analytical mind is neurologically designed to classify the world into pairs of opposites. It is the basic survival mechanism of our prefrontal cortex, light and darkness, good and evil, success and failure, inside and outside, me and the universe. This dualistic vision is the mother of all creator suffering. As long as you believe that you are an isolated individual tucked into a bag of skin, separated from the server that hosts your projects, separated from the bank account that receives your income, and separated from the viewer who consumes your work, you will live in a perpetual state of anxiety. Because if you are separate from the world is a gigantic and random threat that can crush you in any millisecond. But the deepest quantum physics tells us something terrifyingly beautiful. There are no separate parts in the universe. The universe is a single uninterrupted field of energy that ripples. An electron is not a little ball separate from the rest of space. It is simply a temporal and local excitation of an infinite electronic field that permeates the entire cosmos. You are not a human being inside the universe. You are a temporal, biological, and localized excitation of the universe itself. You did not come into the world. You sprouted from the world, in exactly the same way a wave sprouts from the ocean. The wave is not separate from the sea. It is the sea expressing itself in the form of a wave for a few seconds. When this mathematical truth penetrates your nervous system, duality collapses. You realize the technical atrocity you were committing every time you asked the universe for something. You were begging your own arm to shake your hand. You were praying to your own reflection in the mirror to smile first. It is a syntax error that short-circuits the system. Synthesis requires that you murder duality. You are no longer the architect trying to design the house. You are the architect, you are the bricks, you are the gravity that holds them, and you are the house itself. You are the creator of the work, and simultaneously, you are the audience consuming it. When you operate from this structural unity, the fear of publishing, the fear of criticism, or the panic of algorithmic friction becomes biologically impossible. What are you going to fear if the entire operating system is an extension of your own mind? Attacking your own projects would be like having a phobia of your own heartbeat. Devon speaking in binary code, the alternation of 1 and 0. Once the illusion of separation has been eradicated, the final operative question arises. How do we communicate with reality if we can no longer plead, if we can no longer complain, and if we have already killed hope? The answer lies in the fundamental language of information reality, binary code. The entire digital universe is built exclusively on two values, 1 and 0, on and off, voltage and absence of voltage. The language of the physical universe operates under the exact same thermodynamic principle. All mastery discussed in this manual boils down to your ability to impeccably execute the 1 and 0. The 0, 0. Silence and assumption. 0 is the state of quantum vacuum. It is the total absence of effort, mental friction and stress. It is the state of theta waves. It is the transient hyperfrontality where you turn off your ego and allow the law of assumption to flow. You are allowing the software to update in silence. The 1-1. Raw action and matter. 1 is the thermodynamic burst. It is density, pressure, and biomechanical movement. It is the state of high concentration beta waves. It is physical sweat, furious typing, and the collapse of the wave function. When you execute the 1, you are hammering reality. The absolute failure of the masses occurs because they get stuck in a single digit. False mystics and cowards who fear market rejection try to build their empire by typing 0000000. They only meditate, they only think. The result is nothingness. a blank program that executes no function in the third dimension. Conversely, workaholics and desperate creators try to build their empire by typing 111. They only act out of inertia. They only strive from panic. They never stop to listen or empty their minds. The result is material fatigue, clinical burnout, and collapse due to thermal friction. The master of synthesis, who speaks directly to the source code of God, types 10-1-9-2-1. He masters the quantum rhythm. He knows the exact millisecond to apply tactical violence and raw action, 1, to break inertia. And immediately after, he knows the exact millisecond to release the controls completely and sink into silence, 0. Mastery is not constant effort. Mastery is the perfect oscillation, the rhythmic dance between maximum tension and maximum relaxation. That is the binary code of creation. Zero latency, the state of absolute synchronicity. In computing, latency is the delay time between when you press a key and when the letter appears on the screen. The higher the latency, the slower and more frustrating the system. In the traditional human manifestation process, latency is immense. An ordinary individual desires something and sabotages himself with fear. The latency between their initial intention and the materialization of their reality can be decades, or it may never happen. When you reach the state of synthesis, you enter the state of zero latency. Your nervous system becomes a superconductor so efficient that the thermal resistance of your thoughts falls to 0. The time gap between the emission of your will and the reconfiguration of 3D matter almost completely disappears. You start to experience a terrifying cascade of hard synchronicities. These are not magical coincidences. It is pure mathematics processing at high speed. You type the 1 of raw action, recording a project with absolute certainty. Immediately you type the 0 of silence by forgetting the result and going to sleep. Upon waking, you find the matrix catapulted it to critical mass overnight because your total absence of fear allowed the algorithm to breathe without your interference. You need to solve a logistical or financial bottleneck. You enter 0 point silence, and within 5 minutes, an email from a stranger or a random reading delivers the exact fragment of code you needed. You execute the 1 action, and the problem disintegrates. In zero latency, you no longer try to manifest. Manifestation occurs as an automatic and inevitable byproduct of your simple breathing. Your thoughts densify at the speed of light because there is no longer any subconscious voice screaming that you don't deserve it, or that it's too difficult. You have purged the operating system. First, the transducer and the gravity of the crown. Reaching this level of synthesis is not a child's game. It is the assumption of a crushing thermodynamic responsibility. It is the weight of the crown. In engineering, a transducer is a device that takes one type of energy and converts it into another completely different type. The creator who reaches synthesis becomes the supreme biological transducer of the matrix. You take the infinite, silent, and terrifying immensity of the quantum vacuum, an energy that 99% of the population cannot process without going crazy, and you translate it. You put your hands into that invisible fire, extract axioms, and use the friction of your brain to densify it into precise words, magnetic videos, and tangible businesses that other human minds can consume. You are the bridge of flesh and silicon by which the universe experiences and understands itself in the 3D plane. The universe needs your keyboard. It needs your workstation. It needs your ability to get frustrated, to cry in operative mourning, and to deal with entropy, because without the density of your physical experience, the universe would be just a boring, abstract mathematical equation floating in nothingness. You give texture to creation. You are the friction that makes existence tactile. The synthesized creator protocol, the final operating system. To anchor this cosmic synthesis into your daily biology, you need an execution loop, a behavioral algorithm you can run from the moment you open your eyes until you close them, shielding you against any regression to victimhood. This is the synthesized creator's loop. Cold start, the 0 of the morning. Upon waking, the system does not connect to the outside. No looking at metrics or news. You dedicate your first minutes to 0 point silence. You execute vagal breathing. You immerse yourself in the memory of the future. You calibrate the tuning fork. Friction transmutation. Compiling the one. You start the work. You find the resistance of matter. The script is difficult. The environment interrupts you. Instead of complaining, you smile with sociopathic coldness. You read the obstacle as the capture of the universe. You apply raw action and high speed of implementation. Multidimensional filtering, purging the code. If you are designing a concept, you pass it through the acid of simultaneous translation. You look at it through the emotional prism and then the analytical prism. If the concept breaks, you discard it. If it survives, you have the truth in your hands. Your karmic audit, quality control. Before pressing the export button, you pass the file through the karma scanner. Is there scarcity here? Is there envy? Am I trying to cheat the matrix? If the work is an act of asymmetric delivery and massive value, you proceed to the wave function collapse. Hermetic closure, the zero of the night. You press publish. In that millisecond, you murder hope and enter ego quarantine. You apply the pressurization ritual. You close the studio door and return your biological presence 100% to your loved ones. You sleep in the superconductivity of duty fulfilled. Face the creator as a force of nature. From this moment on, you cease to belong to the category of content creators, digital entrepreneurs, or spiritual seekers. Those are tiny labels invented by society to categorize harmless individuals. You have become a thermodynamic force of nature. You are as inevitable and non-negotiable as gravity or entropy itself. Platforms will change their names, algorithms will mutate, global economic systems will collapse and be rebuilt a dozen times during your life. None of that matters in the slightest, because you no longer depend on the temporary rules of a specific server. You know the machine code that underlies all simulations of reality. If the matrix takes away your voice in one language, you will raise it in another with double the structural depth. If the system takes away your distribution channels, your critical mass will resonate so loudly that the tribe will find you even in the dark. If the friction of your geography attempts to suffocate you, you will use that immense pressure to forge an operational shield that comfortable creators can never penetrate. There is nothing the three-dimensional universe can throw at you that you do not know how to decode, disassemble, and transmute into high-octane fuel for your own advancement. Conclusion: the universal translator. The theoretical journey ends on this page, but the compilation of your new reality has just begun. You have crossed the abyss. You have unlearned the grammar of scarcity, the victim narrative, and the poison of complacent, magical thinking. Now you understand to the marrow of your bones that the universe is not a moral judge or a savior. It is a blind, perfect, and mathematically exact thermodynamic engine that responds solely and exclusively to the density of your frequency and the violence of your physical execution. You are no longer a fragile individual fighting against circumstances, infrastructure failures, or corporate walls. From this millisecond onward, you irrevocably assume your true identity in the global network. You are a supreme biological transducer. In pure engineering, a transducer is a device capable of transforming one type of incomprehensible energy into another usable one. That is your sacred function in this dimensional plane. Your non-negotiable work consists of standing at the very edge of the void, absorbing the terrifying immensity of quantum silence, where all unmanifested probabilities reside, and forcing its translation. You take that abstract energy and apply the brutal friction of your nervous system to convert it into words, projects, binary code, and physical actions that other human minds can consume, digest, and utilize to wake up. This is the true bilingualism of the gods. It is not about mastering human languages. It is about mastering simultaneous translation between the world of consciousness and the physical world. You are the fiber optic bridge between the invisible and heavy matter. You understand the language of the ether, assumption, certainty, 0 point, and translate it impeccably into the three-dimensional language, raw action, robotic consistency, operative morning. But this level of authority brings with it a crushing responsibility. By knowing the true language of the universe, you have lost the right to complain forever. You can no longer blame the algorithm, entropy, or inertia for your stagnation, because now you know that you are the only user with administrator privileges. If reality does not bend, it is because your code was afraid or your action lacked gravity. The era of the spiritual beggar is dead. The time of lighting candles and crossing your fingers, hoping the matrix favors you out of pity, has disintegrated into thin air. The creator who has hope perishes. The architect who assumes conquers. The screen of reality is turned on in front of you. The cursor is blinking in the immensity of the vacuum, waiting for your instructions. Infinite intelligence does not have a master plan for your life. It is waiting patiently for you to impose yours upon it. Stop pleading with the cosmos. Stop asking for permission to exist. Assume your mass, execute your will. The entire universe is in absolute silence, listening for the next stroke of your keyboard.